Chapter 57-58. There is such a plan, but I'm not sure yet, Han Jingjing said with a smile. Although the technology was there, it was not so easy to build a flying saucer. Just as everyone was talking, Lin Yi slowly opened his eyes upstairs. His consciousness finally communicated with the Yuanshan outside from the space of the jade pendant. It was only a matter of time before he woke up. But what were these strange metal rods around him? An array? Who set it up? Lin Yi remembered that he was injured and unconscious after the explosion in the central sacred region. Fortunately, Languza had already picked them up at that time, so the safety of others didn't seem to need him to worry. With a sweep of his divine sense, Lin Yi already knew that he was back in the villa in Songshan City. Those who were unconscious continued to sleep well, and the rest were in the living room below, huddled together to study something. Jingjing? Lin Yi was slightly stunned. For a moment, Lin Yi wondered if he had returned to the heavenly island. Otherwise, how could he see Han Jingjing? However, except for Han Jingjing, the rest were in the secular world, and this was indeed the villa in Songshan City. Then there was only one possibility: Han Jingjing also came to the secular world. After carefully sensing, Han Jingjing was indeed a Yuanshin. This made Lin Yi very surprised. How long had he been unconscious? Could it be that it wasn't 10 days, but more than 10 months? Otherwise, how could Han Jingjing appear here as a Yuanshin? Was she already a nascent soul master? Jiao Lao, how long did I stay in the space of the jade pendant? Lin Yi asked Jiao Yazi. With his strength, it was not easy to project his Yuanshin and condense it into a Yuanshin. With Han Jingjing's cultivation, how could it be easier than him? It's been more than 10 years, Elder Jiao said casually. Lin Yi decided to ignore this old guy. It must be because he didn't think of him much when he returned to the secular world, so now it was a blatant revenge. Since Han Jingjing was here, there was nothing strange about these metal pillars beside Lin Yi's bed. It must be something that Han Jingjing made. Perhaps the energy that he felt in the space of the jade pendant that did not belong to the space of the jade pendant was made by these things. If that was the case, did Han Jingjing come to save him? It was because of Han Jingjing's help that he could improve the speed of spiritual sense cultivation. Thinking about the speed of his spirit's training, Lin Yi was a little excited. The art of stealing fortune was indeed very effective in training his spirit. When he woke up, he found that his spirit's strength had reached the late stage of mystic ascension. At the same time, Lin Yi's body on the island also made a light crackling sound. The true qi in his body was surging. His bones and meridians seemed to be undergoing a slight reorganization. He actually broke through again. Tian Chan, who was guarding on the side, was overjoyed, but she didn't dare to make a sound, for fear of disturbing Lin Yi. She just pulled a rope on the side, and the bell connected to the bottom shook rapidly. After hearing it, Sydney also hurried up. When Sydney and Shanghai Lena rushed up, they just saw Lin Yi's body sit up by itself and return to the previous state of cultivation. Great! Jingjing succeeded. I knew she could do it! Shanghai Lena couldn't help but cheer. Lin Yi had returned to the state of cultivation, so Tian Chan was also relieved and didn't stop Shanghai Lena's cheers. Sydney was also excited. She hugged Tian Chan and said, Great! Jingjing really succeeded, and she saved Lin Yi so quickly. She's really amazing! Tian Chan was so happy that her pretty face turned red. She nodded repeatedly and said, Yes, yes! Fortunately, Jingjing went, otherwise I don't know how long it would take for Lin Yi to return to his original state. Thinking that she should inform the will of heaven and Okuda state about this matter, Tian Chan suppressed her excitement. She glanced at Lin Yi and hurried down to inform someone. Not to mention that the people on the island were as happy as if they were celebrating a festival. When Lin Yi found that Han Jingjing had also returned, he didn't have time to experience the feeling of the profound ascension late stage. He got up and went straight downstairs. Jingjing, how did you come back? As soon as he went downstairs, Lin Yi asked. The people who were looking around the UFO wreckage suddenly turned around in surprise. Big brother Lin Yi, you're awake! Han Jingjing was the first to react. She was also a Yuanshan. Before Lin Yi spoke, she had already sensed something. So as soon as Lin Yi opened his mouth, she had already cheered and rushed over. On the contrary, Languza, a profound ascension late-stage expert, didn't realize that Lin Yi had come downstairs until he heard his voice. Needless to say, no one could find any trace of Lin Yi. Lin Yi smiled and hugged Han Jingjing, who rushed over like a swallow returning to its nest. He waved to everyone and then asked, "How did you come back? The Yuanshan's condensation is very good." Han Jingjing remembered that there were still a lot of people on the side. She suddenly lowered her head shyly, but she was also reluctant to leave Lin Yi's embrace. She just whispered, "I researched a soft armor that can emit the aura of nascent soul. It deceived the Yuanshan projection device, so I was able to return to the secular world. Moreover, this soft armor also came back with my Yuanshan. My Yuanshan body is also thanks to this soft armor." Lin Yi was greatly surprised. He never doubted that Han Jingjing was a genius, but he still underestimated the degree of Han Jingjing's genius. He was very clear that the Yuanshan projection device couldn't bring any physical equipment, but Han Jingjing could still bring the soft armor she researched. This could only explain one problem, that is, Han Jingjing's soft armor could already be regarded as Yuanshan equipment. For example, Lin Yi's divine bracelet. He was very sure that even if he didn't use the space of the jade pendant to carry it, he could still bring the divine bracelet back when he went back. "Lin Yi, this time, thanks to Jing Jing coming over, you can wake up. Also, if it weren't for Jing Jing, those people from the center would have probably killed us all." Sun Jingyi came up and said with a smile. She was asking for credit for Han Jingjing, but also reminding Lin Yi not to forget the threat from the center. Lin Yi's face turned cold. "The center again? Are they not dead yet? It seems that I really have to kill them all. Jing Jing, do you have a video?" Lin Yi guessed that the center came to find trouble, so Han Jingjing would probably record the whole process. Sure enough, Han Jingjing immediately nodded and said, "Yes, big brother Lin Yi, do you want to see it now?" Chapter 57-59. "Wait a second, Lin Yi bro, I'll get the laptop and play it for you." Han Jingjing didn't wait for Lin Yi's reply and went upstairs. Everyone was watching, and she didn't want to be too intimate with them. Very quickly, Han Jingjing connected the video of the attack to the big TV in the living room. Everyone watched it, and when Lin Yi saw the white super flame, his face turned extremely ugly. This kind of flame was something that even he was afraid of. If Han Jingjing wasn't here to dispel it, everyone in the villa would have been turned into ashes. The people here were the most important to Lin Yi, and the Central's actions were simply urging Lin Yi to kill them as soon as possible. Lin Yi couldn't take it anymore, since the Central was courting death like this. It seemed that he wouldn't be able to go back to Sky Class Island in peace if he didn't get rid of the Central's power in the common world. Shui Jianfeng brought Zhaolong back to the second base just as he was thinking about how to get rid of the Central power. The operation this time was a complete failure, and they almost lost the new professor, who had just revived from his inherited memories. In the meeting room, Jiang Wen smiled coldly at Zhaolong. "Professor Kong, you're really something. Destroying a flying saucer so easily, you're really something." Zhaolong was a bit embarrassed, not knowing what to say. He understood that Jiang Wen was blaming him for not listening to orders. Meng Yao was in the villa, and Jiang Wen wouldn't allow him to hurt her. Zhaolong being able to inherit the glasses professor's memory was mostly due to Lan Xiuru's guidance, but Jiang Wen had helped as well. If Jiang Wen had objected, Lan Xiuru might have given him some face. After all, it was easy to find a scientist's body in the Central. Plus, Jiang Wen was the commander of the Central base, and Zhaolong acting on his own was already breaking the rules. Lan Xiuru coughed lightly and tried to smooth things over. "This matter is a little strange. Let's put aside the other problems for now and study it together." As he spoke, the screen in the meeting room showed the scene of the flying saucer attacking the villa. First, the super flame fell, and then it was absorbed by the metal rod. The whole process was slowed down 10 times, and because it was shot from the side, it was even clearer than what Xiaolong could see from the flying saucer. After watching the video, Xiaolong's face was already very ugly. When the laser beam was reflected, his face was as black as the bottom of a pot. Miss Lan, our attack is obviously targeted. This situation is too abnormal. I suspect that there is a traitor in the base, Faolong said coldly. The doctor was killed by the traitor, Dafeng Bro. The memory was still fresh, so Xiaolong immediately thought of the traitor. Lan Xiaoru nodded but didn't express any opinion. Instead, she turned to Jiang Wen and asked, Commanderin, what do you think? This second base was built single-handedly by Jiang Wen, and Lan Xiaoru didn't know much about it, so she asked for his opinion. Jiang Wen said solemnly, It's not impossible. That bastard Lin Yi likes to get people to be his spies. So I've been very careful in this area. If even this can let the traitor get our secrets, then this traitor must be very powerful. Lan Xiaoru smiled faintly. On the surface, Jiang Wen said it wasn't impossible, but between the lines, it was completely impossible. Lan Xiaoru didn't say much and looked at the stilled video again. It was the moment when the laser beam was reflected by the U-shaped shield. Whether or not there is a traitor, it's certain that they have a technological expert. Otherwise, even if we gave them the theory, they wouldn't be able to crack it and create a countermeasure in a short time. Lan Xiaoru's right index finger on the table lightly tapped on the metal surface as she analyzed calmly. Xiaolong heard it and slapped his thigh as if he had thought of something. That's right. That must be it. I remember now, Lin Yi does have a technological expert with him. I think she's called Han Jingjing? Back then, it was this little bitch who made some automatic pill refining equipment for Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company to sell. House Kang's business was ruined, and we almost went bankrupt. If Zhao Ming didn't enter the Five Elements sect and go to Sky Island, House Kang would have been gone a long time ago. The technological expert in the villa must be this little bitch. Lan Xiaoru raised an eyebrow and tapped hard on the table. Oh? I know this Han Jingjing, but she should be on Sky Island. It would be strange if she came back. Wait here, I'll contact the main body. Yes. Miss Lan, please go ahead. The three didn't have any objections and sent Lan Xiaoru out of the meeting room. After Lan Xiaoru left, the three in the meeting room didn't like each other, and the atmosphere became awkward. Jiang Wen originally liked Xiaolong a lot, even taking him in as his follower. But after Xiaolong inherited the glasses professor's memories, his status wasn't any lower than Jiang Wen's. Plus, he wanted to kill Meng Yao as well, and even said that there was a spy in the second base. It would be strange if Jiang Wen still treated Xiaolong nicely. As for Shui Jianfeng, Jiang Wen didn't really care about him, and naturally, he wouldn't care about him now. Shui Jianfeng knew that he didn't care about Jiang Wen either, let alone Xiaolong, who he wanted to kill but had to save. Xiaolong was in high spirits, and he didn't care about the two's feelings. The three just stared at each other. After a while, they remembered that Lan Xiaoru wouldn't be able to contact Sky Island so quickly. The three didn't say a word and left with a humph at the same time. One day later, Jiang Wen and the others returned to the meeting room and waited for Lan Xiaoru. They still had the same attitude as yesterday. When Lan Xiaoru came in and saw the three's strange behavior, she felt a headache coming on. It was a classic case of people losing their morale, and it was hard to lead the team. Chapter 5760. Faolong frowned. There was no information on Han Jingjing in the professor's memories, so he probably didn't pay much attention to her. Xiaolong's own memories, on the other hand, gave him a better understanding of Han Jingjing. I seem to remember that spirit projection requires one to be at least nascent soul level, right? Is that little bitch Han Jingjing that strong already? Miss Lan, you said last time that the spies on Sky Class Island all paid attention to the women around Lin Yi, and they shouldn't be that strong. Xiaolong rubbed his forehead. The two memories hadn't completely merged yet, so it was a little confusing when he searched through them. It made him feel quite uncomfortable. Lan Xiaoru glanced at Daolong. I've asked around, and the information I got was that Han Jingjing created a soft armor of disguise and used it to fool the soul projection device. That's why she was able to return to the mortal world without any problems and still maintain her soul form. To be honest, I really admire her. We've met our match this time. Valong nodded and chuckled. I've met my match, isn't that a good thing? With Miss Lan here, I don't think that Han Jingjing will be able to make any waves. On the contrary, the things that she has come up with are also very inspiring to us. For example, the camouflage soft armor that can hide from the primordial spirit projection device. Since we know about it, we can always research it. You're quite confident, aren't you? You're a genius with the brains of 2 professors. Xiaoru smiled faintly, but her expression changed immediately. Not good. I finally understood why Han Jingjing had set up those devices to deal with our attacks. She must have hacked into our system. Xiaolong's face changed as well. The glasses professor and Lan Shiru were used to treating the second base as the central holy domain of the seabed. All the systems there were set up by the 2 of them, and they knew how strong it was against hackers. But this place was built by Jiangwen, and although it was the center's standard system, it was far from being able to defend against network attacks. Jiangwen wasn't an idiot. He understood after hearing Xiaoru's words. He was very confident in his men's loyalty, and he didn't think there was a spy. However, he didn't have much confidence in the system's defensive capabilities, because he really didn't know much about it. Lan Xiaoru quickly pulled over the laptop beside her. Her fingers turned into 2 afterimages as they nimbly danced across the keyboard. Lines of instructions slid down like a screen being refreshed. Those with poor eyesight might not even be able to see the words clearly. Xiaolong didn't idle around either. He grabbed another laptop and entered the defense network. The glasses doctor and Lan Xiaoru worked well together, and Xiaolong had inherited his memories. It was natural for him to do things like this. In less than 3 minutes, Lan Xiaoru's serious expression loosened. She exhaled softly and said, "The interception was successful. The system has indeed been hacked. This Han Jingjing is truly a genius." Xiaolong's forehead was already covered in cold sweat. He wasn't as relaxed as Xiaoru, his face full of fear. "That was close. Our system was already controlled by this little bitch. Luckily, the self-destruct system in the second base is independent and not connected to the external network. Otherwise, if she self-destructed, we'd all be dead." At the mention of self-destruct, everyone, including Xiaoru and Shui Jianfeng, shuddered involuntarily. They clearly remembered the self-destruct in the center of the sea. Although they didn't experience it themselves, the recording of it was quite shocking. "It seems like we don't have much of an advantage in terms of technology this time. We need to get rid of him before he wakes up. Since technology doesn't work, we'll have to resort to brute force." Shiru narrowed her eyes as she spoke coldly. She then turned to Shui Jianfeng. "What?" Shui Jianfeng knew that she wanted him to make a move. In order to get the antidote as soon as possible, he immediately lowered his head and said respectfully, "Miss Lan, why don't you let me try a sneak attack?" If it was a frontal attack, Shui Jianfeng knew that he couldn't succeed alone, but if it was a sneak attack, he still had some confidence. Especially since the person he wanted to kill was Lin Yi, Shui Jianfeng was full of motivation. "Shui Jianfeng, how confident are you in succeeding?" Xiaoru indeed wanted Shui Jianfeng to make a move, but if the success rate was too low, she wouldn't force Shui Jianfeng to die. It wasn't easy to cultivate a master of the Black Ascension stage like Shui Jianfeng. There were so many resources in the Jianghu, but in the end, only 2 succeeded. In the end, one of them, Qin Dongqing, betrayed them. The remaining Shui Jianfeng couldn't be easily killed. Otherwise, there wouldn't be enough resources to cultivate the next one. Shui Jianfeng thought about it seriously and said, "If it wasn't for that Languza, the chance of killing Lin Yi is still very high. Not to mention that he's unconscious right now, even if he's awake. As long as I don't fear death and keep using the spirit incinerator, I'll definitely be able to kill him. But with Languza by my side, the chance of success is probably less than 20%. Right, there's also Qin Dongqing. With this despicable traitor, I don't even have a 10% chance of success." Zhao Long seemed to have remembered something and snapped his fingers. He quickly pulled up a blurry video from the computer and said, "This is the image taken by the satellite. It's the image of the sea near the center of the sacred region after it self-destructed. I almost forgot about this. Come and take a look." Xiaoru and Shui Jianfeng temporarily put down their discussion and turned to the big screen. In the azure blue sea, there was a blurry image of a dragon, carrying 4 people on its back, moving quickly. It was the image of Languza going to help Lin Yi and the others. However, Languza was too fast and left the range of the satellite in an instant, leaving only this blurry image. "Sea dragon!" Shui Jianfeng exclaimed. He knew that Languza was the previous sea dragon, but he didn't expect that Languza had evolved into a sea dragon. This was even more difficult to deal with. Maybe he wouldn't even need Lin Yi and Chen Dongqing to do anything. Languza would kill him directly. Chapter 5761. Lan Xiaoru didn't pay attention to Shui Jianfeng's shock. Instead, she tapped on the table lightly. This was her habit when she entered her thinking mode. To deal with Lin Yi, Languza was an unavoidable obstacle. After evolving into a sea dragon, Languza was definitely not an opponent that could be ignored. Not to mention, the only one who could go toe-to-toe with Languza and Lin Yi was Shui Jianfeng. On Lin Yi's side, other than Languza, there was also Chen Dongqing who betrayed them. Thinking about Chen Dongqing made Lan Xiaoru's teeth itch. If he didn't betray the center, after injecting the new recovery potion, he and Shui Jianfeng could work together to deal with Lin Yi's group. In the current situation, if they wanted to kill Lin Yi, they had to first get rid of Languza and Chen Dongqing. Normally speaking, this was an impossible task, but after thinking about it for a while, Lan Xiaoru really did come up with an idea. "Professor Kong, immediately study Han Jingjing's soft armor with me. We must understand the theory behind it." Lan Xiaoru's fingers paused heavily, her face showing a confident expression as if she had everything under control. Zhao Long, on the other hand, was stunned for a moment. He then asked with uncertainty, "Miss Lan, studying the soft armor now? What's the use?" Was Shui Jianfeng supposed to disguise himself as a master of mountain opening stage, or even sea-splitting stage to scare Languza and Chen Dongqing? Would they be scared to death by Shui Jianfeng? It didn't seem very reliable, right? Lan Xiaoru curled her lips and smiled mysteriously. "Doesn't Han Jingjing like to pretend and deceive people? Let's give her a taste of her own medicine. Studying the theory behind this soft armor isn't to create soft armor, but to create a new device." Zhao Long was indeed the reincarnation of the glasses professor. His rapport with Lan Xiaoru wasn't fake. He immediately understood what was going on. "I understand now. Han Jingjing can use this kind of method to fool the spirit projector. If we can master it as well, with a 3D hologram, we can create a virtual image that looks exactly like a real person. These virtual images, as long as they can release the aura of a profound ascension stage, they can definitely distract Languza and Chen Dongqing's attention. Shui Jianfeng will be hidden within them. Whether it's ambushing them or killing Lin Yi, it'll be a piece of cake." Zhao Long got more and more excited as he spoke. His eyes were completely lit up. Jiang Wen and Shui Jianfeng couldn't help but admire this. They couldn't join in the conversation between technical maniacs at all, but knowing that there was a chance to kill Lin Yi was enough to make them happy. Just as Lan Xiaoru predicted, as long as they had a common enemy as their target, the conflict between them would be temporarily put aside. "There's no time to lose. Let's start the research immediately and try to complete this device as soon as possible," Lan Xiaoru said as she quickly operated on the computer. She wasn't studying the camouflage device now, but she was re-strengthening the network's defense measures. Otherwise, if Han Jingjing hacked her again, she, Lan Xiaoru, would completely lose her face. Not only was it a matter of face, but the research this time must not be known by Han Jingjing, lest Han Jingjing came up with another countermeasure. Zhao Long didn't talk about this topic with Lan Xiaoru, but he started setting up the firewall as well. The glasses doctor was unparalleled when it came to working with Lan Xiaoru, and it was no wonder that Lan Xiaoru wanted him to inherit her memories as soon as she was reborn. With the two of them working together, it was almost impossible for Han Jingjing to hack into the central system without being discovered. The center was busy setting up the network's defense system. No one thought that Han Jingjing could hack into the central computer. This meant that the second base was completely exposed to Lin Yi. If Lin Yi were to counterattack, what would happen? Of course, in their hearts, Lin Yi was still unconscious. Even if he found out about this place, he wouldn't have the strength to attack. Plus, Jiang Wen had put a lot of effort into the second base's defense. The weapons were set up to defend against an entire army. In Songshan's villa, Han Jingjing's laptop suddenly made a crisp ding sound. She glanced at it casually and curled her lips. Finally found my intrusion. Not bad, the interception speed is also quite fast. After a day of training, Lin Yi had stabilized his strength after breaking through. He was planning to go to the center to settle the score when he heard Han Jingjing's words. Jingjing, you can confirm the location of the central base, right? Han Jingjing had used reverse tracking to hack into the central system and broke through the enemy's attack. She had told Lin Yi about this, so he wasn't surprised that the intrusion was stopped. After all, the enemy wasn't weak. It was normal for them to be stopped after discovering it. The main problem was where the central base was. As long as they could confirm it, they would be able to go straight to their base and take them all out. Lin Yi's soul wasn't completely stable after he woke up yesterday, and he needed some time to adjust to his breakthrough. That was why he didn't go straight to them. I know the location, but Big Brother Lin Yi, I think it's meaningless for you to go now. With the cunning of the people in the center, they must have known that their position was exposed after discovering my intrusion. So if you go now, you'll at most find some empty houses in the base. You won't get anything, Han Jingjing said with certainty. Based on her judgment, knowing that their position was exposed, and Lin Yi could attack at any time, the people in the center wouldn't stay in the same place no matter how stupid they were. Unfortunately, Han Jingjing also made the same mistake as Lan Xiaoru and the others in the center. She took it for granted. The people in the center took it for granted that Lin Yi was still unconscious, so they didn't have any scruples. And Han Jingjing also took it for granted that the center knew that Lin Yi had woken up. A awakened and angry Lin Yi, it went without saying how much damage he could cause. Both sides were coincidentally like this. One didn't escape in time, and the other didn't chase in time. They were too smart for their own good. Chapter 5762. Languza came over and said, Boss, since you're awake, why don't I go over and take a look before coming back? If they didn't escape, we can just kill them, what do you think? When Lin Yi was unconscious, Languza had been guarding the mansion, not daring to leave. Now that Lin Yi had woken up, and Languza heard that there was a possibility of a fight, of course he had to come over and decide on a spot. Han Jingjing waved her hand and smiled. Languza, stop messing around, they must have escaped. But don't worry, since they want to deal with Lin Yi Gij, they will definitely jump out. As long as we guard here, you don't have to worry about no one to beat up. If they come over when you leave, then you'll miss it. Languza thought about it and agreed. If he missed it because he left, wouldn't it be a pity? It was better to be safe. If he stayed by his boss's side, he wouldn't have to worry about no one beating him up. Sister-in-law Jingjing is right. Boss, let's wait here for them to come over, see how I'll take care of them. Languza patted his chest, looking like he was taking care of everything. Lin Yi smiled faintly. Then let's do it this way. We'll just wait for them to come looking for a beating. Han Jingjing quickly operated on the computer, and from time to time, she would communicate with the person in charge of the Songzhan City's technology department through her earpiece. She had completely researched the center's UFO, but it was obviously impossible for her to manufacture it by herself. With the manpower and resources of the Supernatural Investigation Bureau and the financial resources of Miracle Dr. Guan Medical Group, they could complete the manufacturing of the UFO in the shortest time possible. The Supernatural Investigation Bureau had the opportunity to come into contact with such a high-tech UFO manufacturing technology, so they were secretly happy. Of course, they would put in the most effort to cooperate with Han Jingjing. Linny Gidge, you're right. We'll wait for them to come looking for a beating, and by then, our UFO will be almost complete, so they won't be able to escape even if they want to. Han Jingjing had a hint of pride on her face as she took the time to smile at Linny. The UFO that was being manufactured was based on the original technology of the center, and it had been improved to perfection. In terms of performance, it completely surpassed the center's UFO. Moreover, Han Jingjing had also improved the space compression technology of the center. After the new UFO was completed, it could freely change its size. The largest it could be was about the size of this villa, and the smallest was about the size of Han Jingjing's palm. Rather than calling it a high-tech product, it would be more appropriate to call it a legendary artifact. Only a heaven-defying person like Han Jingjing could perfectly fuse the technology of the center and the forging technology of Heaven's Stage Island to such a degree in such a short time. Linny smiled faintly and said, "It's good to have you by my side. This time, if those fellows from the Central Command dare to come, I will definitely not let them off." On a screen next to Han Jingjing was the scene of the construction of the UFO. Linny leaned over to take a look. The general framework was almost built, and the new shell alloy was about to be covered. These alloys were improved by Han Jingjing after she decomposed the wreckage of the UFO. The technology used was at least 100 years ahead of the current mainstream technology. It was more advanced than liquid metal, so it could cooperate with space technology to change the size of the UFO. "By the way, Jingjing, I happen to have something to ask you. I didn't think of it yesterday." Linny slapped his forehead. When he was in the immemorial small world, he wanted to tell Han Jingjing about the Divine Sense Alchemy Fire and the Sea Beast Niden Alchemy. Unfortunately, he couldn't go back to Heaven's Stage Island at that time. Now that he met Han Jingjing, he actually forgot about it. Seeing that Han Jingjing could still talk leisurely, Linny also mentioned it casually. It should not disturb her. Linny took out a Sea Beast Niden of the Gold Core stage and handed it to Han Jingjing along with some pill recipes collected in the immemorial small world. In the immemorial small world, they all use Divine Sense to condense the alchemy fire, and use the Sea Beast Niden as the main material for alchemy. I have tried several times, but there is no way to succeed. Hey, is there such a method? It's quite interesting. Han Jingjing took the Sea Beast Niden and the pill recipe and looked at it over and over several times, and her eyes lit up. For Han Jingjing, it was obviously a very interesting thing to have a new research idea and direction. Linny could throw these problems to her, which was exactly what she wanted. "Big brother Linny, it seems that your automatic alchemy furnace needs to be upgraded to a new version, but this is not urgent." Han Jingjing put the Sea Beast Niden and the pill recipe into her soft armor, then turned back to fiddle with the laptop and continued to set a series of parameters of the flying saucer. "Let Jingjing make the first generation of flying saucer for Big Brother Linny first, lest those bad guys in the center escape. Is there anything I can help you with?" Linny also knew that he couldn't help Han Jingjing in this regard, but it was still necessary to show his concern. "Yes, Big Brother Linny is accompanying Jingjing by my side, which is already a great help. This can make Jingjing full of motivation." Han Jingjing turned her head and gave Linny a bright smile. Linny was suddenly happy and touched his nose. It turned out that he also had a halo of motivation, which he had just discovered. This time, Languza tactfully turned his head and pretended not to hear. "Boss and sister-in-law are showing off their love as mentioned on the internet? Humans are really complicated. It seems that this dragon still has a lot to learn." Linny and the center coincidentally formed a tacit understanding. Both sides spent 2 peaceful days in research and manufacturing, without any probing or attacks. In these 2 days, Linny didn't waste any time. Other than chatting with everyone often, he put all his effort into refining the last Divine Sense tumor in his spirit. Using the Heaven-Stolen Fortune battle art and the Divine Sense fruit to cultivate, although the last Divine Sense tumor was very stubborn, it was completely refined. When all the divine sense tumors disappeared, Lin Yi's spirit instantly felt a sense of relaxation and joy, as if his whole body was about to ascend to heaven. The powerful divine sense spread out like a tide, and the entire Songhan city appeared in Lin Yi's sea of consciousness. At this moment, it was as if he was standing in the air, looking down at the city. No matter which remote corner he was in, he could see everything clearly with just a thought. He could even see how much dust was on a bottle cap that someone had thrown on the ground. Chapter 5763. Lin Yi's body on the heavenly island also exuded a powerful aura. His true qi was constantly surging and circling, and with a loud bang, he advanced to the peak of the profound ascension late stage. If it wasn't for the strong restriction in the Tiandan pavilion, Lin Yi's aura would have completely crushed his own Tiandan pavilion. So powerful! Languza felt Lin Yi's aura, opened his mouth wide and said foolishly, he didn't even notice that the steak that had just been stuffed into his mouth fell out. As a mutated dragon and the strength of the profound ascension late stage, Languza was definitely an abnormal existence that could challenge those of a higher level, but under the pressure of Lin Yi's aura, Languza felt that he was not a dragon at all, but a small worm. Just 2 small levels, there was such a huge feeling of suppression. Languza could only say that the boss was the world's #1 abnormal person. Genius was not enough to describe him. Lin Yi had a faint smile on his face, and enjoyed this mysterious feeling to his heart's content. However, a flying saucer rushed into the range of his divine sense, and in the blink of an eye, it was about to reach the sky above the villa. The clowns of the center, they really sent themselves to the door. Lin Yi opened his eyes and smiled disdainfully. He had just advanced to the peak of the profound ascension late stage, and the center came to seek death. This could be considered as double happiness, right? Lin Yi retracted all of his divine sense, and Languza immediately noticed the arrival of the flying saucer. He immediately stuffed another 2 steaks into his mouth, and said vaguely, "Boss, they really came. Look at how I, Languza, will deal with them." "Qindongqing, you are not allowed to make a move." Qindongqing raised his hands with a bitter smile, indicating that he would absolutely not intervene. Although he had pledged his allegiance to Lin Yi, because he had Languza's genes in his body, he really didn't dare to offend Languza, lest Languza drag him to learn from each other. Languza didn't wait for Lin Yi to answer, and directly rushed out of the villa, stamped his feet on the ground, and his body shot into the sky like a cannonball, quickly approaching the flying saucer in the air. In the flying saucer, Shui Jianfeng pressed a button hard, and muttered, "Kong Xiaolong, you bastard, please don't trick me. If this thing you installed doesn't work, this young master will definitely settle the score with you later." Before he finished speaking, the flying saucer shook slightly, and circles of faint white ripples lit up around it. Languza had already jumped into the air, and just as he was about to punch the flying saucer, he suddenly found that hundreds of masked practitioners in black appeared around the flying saucer, each of them emitting the powerful aura of the early stage of profound ascension. At the same time, they pulled out the long blades on their backs, and launched a fierce slash at Languza. Languza was shocked, and couldn't help but cry out, F***CK! Where did so many masters come from? Do they want to divide this handsome guy into pieces? Sure enough, being handsome really attracts jealousy and hate. If it was 1 or 2 early-stage profound ascension practitioners, Languza could easily crush them, but it was a completely different concept when there were hundreds of them. Quantitative change can cause qualitative change, and even someone as strong as him couldn't help but feel afraid when facing so many sharp blades at the same time. Languza shouted randomly, but he was secretly shocked. The fist that was originally going to attack the flying saucer suddenly changed direction, and landed on the body of the masked man in black closest to him. This punch, Languza didn't use all of his strength, and he began to use his strength before the punch came into contact. The violent force of the punch produced a reverse force in the air, causing his body that was rising to directly stop, and then he began to fall rapidly. Jumping up to deal with the flying saucer wasn't a problem, but to deal with so many early-stage profound ascension practitioners, Languza, who couldn't turn in the air, didn't think that he would come out unscathed, so he immediately returned to the ground. Only by doing this would he have enough space to move. "Boss, a large wave of zombies is attacking. Hurry up and level up the pea shooter." Before Languza landed, he remembered a little game that he had just fallen in love with in the air, and suddenly cried out strangely. Linny immediately laughed. Languza could still talk nonsense so leisurely, which meant that he wasn't under too much pressure, so there was no need to worry too much. In reality, Languza really felt that it was a little strange. Although the 180 masked men in black following closely behind him were full of vigor and murderous intent, he did not feel any sense of danger. Could it be that his sea dragon's strong physical body was enough to block their attacks? Chen Dongqing's face was very ugly, and he quickly got into position to face the enemy. Although he had promised Languza that he wouldn't make a move, now that he sensed so many powerful presences that were not weaker than him coming, if he didn't make a move, Lin Yi would probably suspect that he was a double agent. In the flying saucer, Shui Jianfeng's face was full of joy, and he laughed loudly. As expected of the device that Miss Lan personally designed and made, it was so easy to fool that simple-minded sea beast Languza, and even the traitor Chen Dongqing fell for it. When he said this, Shui Jianfeng's communication device was turned on, and Lan Xiaoru, who was in the base, heard everything clearly. Her face naturally showed a trace of a satisfied expression, but it wasn't clear if she was satisfied with the effect of the device, or the fact that Shui Jianfeng accidentally said the truth. Shui Jianfeng's success was all Lan Xiaoru's, and the responsibility of failure was all Jialong's. Shui Jianfeng smiled sinisterly, then picked up the spirit incinerator, opened the door of the flying saucer without hesitation, and jumped down lightly. Shui Jianfeng, who left the flying saucer, was dressed in black, and his face was also covered. He was exactly the same as the masked men before him, the only difference being the weapon in his hand. In the courtyard at the bottom of the mansion, there were 3 masked men in black who had dropped down. They attacked Languza and Chen Dongqing like ghosts. Behind them, there were even more masked men in black who had dropped down soundlessly in every corner of the mansion. As long as they weren't facing too many masked men at the same time, Languza didn't have the slightest bit of nervousness. His strong body twisted agilely, and he dodged 2 slashes from the sword. He then split his fists and punched at 2 masked men at the same time. As for the third one, Chen Dongqing was already 1 step ahead of him. "Tisk, meddlesome guy!" Languza snorted, and didn't pay attention to Chen Dongqing's act of going back on his words. There were so many masked men in black, and it wasn't a bad thing to have 1 or 2 of them snatched away. The 2 swift and fierce punches avoided any possible parries and successfully arrived in front of the masked man in black. Languza had already turned his gaze to the sky and the roof. He was thinking about where he should take care of the enemy first. Chapter 57-64. Boom! Languza's chest was stuffy, and he almost fell down. It was like running up the stairs with all his strength but stepping on air. The attack that he expected to be a sure hit completely fell into the air. The 2 black-clothed masked men didn't know what kind of movement technique they used. They actually escaped from the place in an instant, and then appeared in the blind spots on both sides of Languza's body in the next second. At the same time, they stabbed the long blades in their hands. Languza was taken aback again. He no longer dared to have the slightest contempt. He tried his best to avoid the 2 long blades. At the same time, he shouted, "Boss, these black-clothed men are very strange. You must be careful." Linny didn't wait for Languza to finish his warning. He had already rushed out of the villa. The whirlpool of divine sense swept around the villa like a gust of wind, but did not attack any physical enemies. Phantom? Linny was slightly startled. In his divine sense, all the black-clothed men were very real, but the whirlpool of divine sense was also not fake. After a sweep, none of the black-clothed men were real. As for the little trick of suddenly disappearing and changing to another side, it had no effect on Lin Yi's divine sense whirlpool at all. Because Lin Yi had more than 1 divine sense whirlpool. Under the sweep back and forth, There was absolutely no possibility for a physical entity to avoid it. Just when Lin Yi was stunned for a short time, a blazing white flame sprayed in front of him. In an instant, it was about to wrap around Lin Yi's divine sense body. Once hit, even if Lin Yi was at the peak of the late stage of profound ascension, it was very likely that he would be turned into ashes in an instant. Lin Yi's eyes narrowed. Even if he could dodge, he absolutely could not dodge. Because the villa was behind him. There were so many people in the villa, and they were all the people he cared about the most. He must not let this super flame hurt them. It was a pity that Han Jingjing's super flame transformation device was installed on the roof. It could not neutralize attacks from the side. If Han Jingjing had known earlier, she would have installed a few more. Now was not the time to regret. Lin Yi, even at the risk of getting injured, had to deal with this super flame first. He raised his hands, and the two newly condensed super pill fire bombs in his palms met the super flame. Relying on the control of his divine sense, the two bombs were detonated in a direction where no one was around. If the super flames shot out by the primordial spirit incinerator could touch Lin Yi's body, the power would naturally not need to be mentioned. However, it usually did not have a strong impact. After being hit by two mini super pill fire bombs, it immediately dissipated into the air. Lin Yi relaxed. Fortunately, the super flame did not fall. Otherwise, he would not be able to find a better way to protect the villa in such a hurry. Shui Jianfeng had already flown to the side. He didn't mind that his first super flame didn't succeed. Seeing that Lin Yi wasn't too far away from him, he didn't hesitate to launch his second attack at Lin Yi. Shui Jianfeng! With a sweep of Lin Yi's divine sense, he had already found and recognized Shui Jianfeng among those phantoms. The black mask was completely useless. The second super flame was shot out from the other side. Even if Lin Yi dodged it, it would not fall on his villa. However, its final destination should be the villa's neighbors. Lin Yi couldn't just watch this kind of tragedy that injured the innocent. Once again, he used the mini super pill fire bomb to detonate the super flame first. At the same time, the soul-reaping hand fell directly on Shui Jianfeng's head. As long as he could reap Shui Jianfeng's primordial spirit, Lin Yi believed that the central attack would almost be over. Then, it would be time for him to counterattack. Lin Yi, have you exhausted your limited abilities? You only know these two moves? Shui Jianfeng laughed wildly and said. An invisible light film lit up on his body, completely blocking the soul-reaping hand outside the light film. Lin Yi frowned slightly and said faintly, You actually have a tool to defend against divine sense attacks. I've underestimated you. Since that's the case, I'll just beat you up. It doesn't matter to me. Lin Yi didn't find it strange that Shui Jianfeng had a tool similar to the divine commanding bracelet. What was strange was that this tool could actually withstand a blow from his mysterious ascension late stage without collapsing. It seemed that it was not inferior to the divine commanding bracelet. All right, let this young master have a look. Shui Jianfeng laughed and agreed. He didn't take Lin Yi's words to heart at all. The primordial spirit incinerator in his hand continued to fire blazing white terrifying flames without stopping. Lin Yi didn't speak anymore. While dealing with the super flames, he approached Shui Jianfeng with lightning speed. He casually struck Shui Jianfeng's body with a frenzy 8 trigram palm. Shui Jianfeng avoided the fatal spot, but was sent flying by the palm. Lin Yi could clearly see the serious wounds on his body. But when he landed on the ground, the wounds had already recovered at a speed visible to the naked eye. Looking closely, the remaining small half had already disappeared. Shui Jianfeng's heart calmed down. His biggest reliance was this immortal body. After testing it and confirming that it was effective, his fear towards Lin Yi dropped to the lowest point. He laughed and rushed forward again with the primordial spirit incinerator. Just like what Shui Jianfeng said to Lan Xiuru, as long as he wasn't afraid of death and withstood Lin Yi's attack, there would be a moment when he would be hit. Since he knew he couldn't die, what was there to be afraid of? He could just kill Lin Yi directly. Lin Yi sneered. Seeing Shui Jianfeng's healing ability, he could roughly guess why the Sacred Alliance wanted the formula for the gold sore medicine. But just based on this, Shui Jianfeng dared to rush forward and fight Lin Yi in close combat. Shui Jianfeng was really stupid and bold. Lin Yi, who hadn't used the super butterfly micro steps for a long time, turned into a shadow and instantly appeared beside Shui Jianfeng. With a simple stretch of his hand, the primordial spirit incinerator fell into Lin Yi's hand. This toy is SOSO. You can give it to Jingjing to kill sometime when you're bored. I won't hold back then. Lin Yi's lips curled into a disdainful smile as he spoke to Shui Jianfeng indifferently. Shui Jianfeng was startled. They agreed that he wouldn't be afraid of death and would use the primordial spirit incinerator to counterattack. Now that the primordial spirit incinerator was snatched away by Lin Yi, the only thing left was to be unafraid of death. But it didn't seem to be of much use now, right? Ha 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 ha. I'm here to give you this toy to play with. Since you've already received it, I won't stay any longer. Goodbye. Shui Jianfeng laughed dryly and turned to escape. Without a weapon, he was actually still afraid of death. Chapter 5765. Forest of Woods, 1,000 Transformations. This was a move that Lin Yi had learned a long time ago. After arriving at Heaven Island, it was basically useless. Even if he used it, it would have been modified. Now that he was using the original version, its power was naturally incomparable to the previous version. In just an instant, several hundred doppelgangers of Lin Yi appeared around the villa, launching attacks on all the black-clothed masked men, including Shui Jianfeng. Although he knew that 99% of them were illusions, the aura of these black-clothed masked men was too realistic. Lin Yi didn't dare to be careless. If one of them really sneaked into the villa, then it would be very troublesome. With Lin Yi's strength, one doppelganger was enough to deal with one black-clothed masked man. The several hundred additional doppelgangers surrounded Shui Jianfeng and beat him up. Even if the power of this martial skill was very small, it would still be very painful to hit the body with such a concentrated attack. Shui Jianfeng immediately burst into tears. Who the hell said that an immortal body was very awesome? Was it fun to be beaten into a pig's head and then recover to become a pig's head again? Sure enough, there was only a fine line between being awesome and being an idiot. Lin Yi was also a little curious about Shui Jianfeng's rapid recovery ability. Therefore, he used the Forest of Woods, 1,000 Transformations, which wasn't very powerful, to test it out. He wanted to see what the limit of Shui Jianfeng's endurance was. As for the matter of killing him, he wasn't in a hurry. Shui Jianfeng knew that he couldn't escape, so he simply wanted to counterattack and fight Lin Yi head-on. However, that raindrop-like fists and kicks instantly dissipated the thought of counterattack. At this time, Shui Jianfeng's body was constantly flying around in the air like a billiard ball, bouncing here and there. He couldn't even land his feet on the ground, let alone counterattack Lin Yi. The camouflage device on the flying saucer had already lost its effect. The other doppelgangers of Lin Yi had completely shattered those illusions. They didn't continue to surround Shui Jianfeng and directly dissipated. Boss, this move of yours is really cool. It's very suitable for handsome guys like us. So, boss, you must teach me how to use it later. Languza shouted as he waved his hands around. Sure enough, the moves of the most handsome on Earth's boss are beautiful. The second most handsome on Earth's boss, Jiaolong, shouldn't be any inferior. As for whether this kind of low-power martial technique was useless or not, Languza did not consider it at all. As long as he could act cool, what did he care about the power? If you want to learn it, watch carefully. It's not like it's a difficult martial skill. Lin Yi smiled faintly. With Languza's strength and eyesight, he would be able to grasp such a low-grade martial technique after seeing it a few times. If he liked it, then let him learn it well. Stop. I admit defeat. I surrender. Shui Jianfeng took advantage of the time when Lin Yi slowed down his attack speed to let Languza learn and hastily called out with great effort. Now, Shui Jianfeng felt that this damned immortal body was specially developed to be a human punching bag. Is the bespectacled doctor not sent by Lin Yi to be a spy in the center? No matter how I look at it, it seems like they colluded to trick me. Often killing the bespectacled doctor was just a ruse, right? While Shui Jianfeng's imagination was running wild, Lin Yi's martial technique's duration was also up. Shui Jianfeng, whose face was bruised and swollen like a broken ball, fell to the ground with a thud. He laid on the ground like a dead dog, panting heavily. Languza looked like he wanted to continue. He waved his hand and shouted, "Boss, do it again, do it again! I haven't seen it clearly yet!" Hearing this demonic voice, Shui Jianfeng couldn't help but shiver. His body's injuries were rapidly recovering, but the shadow in his heart was multiplying in size. Don't do it! Senior Lin, Uncle Lin, I've already surrendered. You can't mistreat a captive! Shui Jianfeng pleaded loudly while cursing Lin Yi in his heart. This young master's strength is a little weak now. When I level up, I'll definitely kick you around like a ball, and I'll kick you around for an entire day. Lin Yi looked at Shui Jianfeng with a smile that wasn't a smile and said, "When did I agree to accept your surrender? So, you're not my captive? You're F*King trying to kill this young master." "No, it's seeking death but not being able to." Shui Jianfeng wanted to cry but had no tears. He continued to lie on the ground and play dead. He said pitifully, "Senior Lin, as a senior, is there any meaning in bickering with a junior like me? Moreover, you've beaten me up for so long. You've already vented your anger. Why don't you treat me as that and let me go? It's not that I can't let you go, but I want to do a few more experiments on you first." Lin Yi smiled faintly and said as he slowly walked in front of Shui Jianfeng. Shui Jianfeng's heart was in a dilemma. He estimated the possibility of injuring Lin Yi and escaping if he suddenly launched an attack. The conclusion he came up with was that there was a 99% chance of this happening. However, he wouldn't succeed in escaping and would continue to be beaten up a few hundred times. Since he would be stabbed if he stretched out his head and would be stabbed if he withdrew his head, then what was the point of stretching out his head? Shui Jianfeng thought furiously. Then, he squeezed out a fake smile and said, "Senior Lin, please do as you please. Just tell me how you need me to cooperate. As long as you're satisfied, you can let me go." "Boss, this fellow is really shameless. Can I beat him up?" "I promise I won't beat him to death." Languza came over and asked eagerly. He had wanted to beat Shui Jianfeng up for a long time. Now that he finally had the chance, how could he miss it? If Lin Yi agreed, it would be even more perfect if he could get rid of Shui Jianfeng. Lin Yi stood in front of Shui Jianfeng and thought for a while before saying, "All right, then Languza, you do it. As long as you don't kill him, you can beat him however you want." The Wood Forest 1000 transformations just now was enough to deal with ordinary Profound Ascension primary stage cultivators. However, Shui Jianfeng's unlimited healing ability was too powerful. Lin Yi wasn't able to test his limits. Now that he let Languza make a move, he could have a better observation. Languza was overjoyed when he received Lin Yi's nod, cackling as he charged at Shui Jianfeng on the ground. He hadn't even reached Shui Jianfeng yet, but his fist was already hurtling towards Shui Jianfeng with a whistling sound. Shui Jianfeng sighed in his heart. Fortunately, Languza's fist wasn't aimed at his vitals. It seemed that Lin Yi was telling the truth when he said he wouldn't kill him. Since that was the case, he could only grit his teeth and endure. Surviving was the best news. "Don't hit my face." Shui Jianfeng raised his hands to protect his head and heart. He cried out in resignation. Then, he began to curse Lin Yi and Languza in his heart. Chapter 5766. Indeed, it was better to be safe than sorry. Without this move, Shui Jianfeng was sure that his days as a human punching bag had just begun. Now, he only needed to hold on for about a minute, and he would be able to escape. "Ah!" Shui Jianfeng cooperated and screamed loudly. Of course, it was really painful. Every time Languza's fist fell, it would take away a piece of flesh from Shui Jianfeng's body. The scene of blood splattering was not suitable for children in movies. However, Shui Jianfeng felt more and more relaxed. Anyway, these injuries would heal very quickly. As long as his head and heart were not blown up, his limbs could be reattached. It was not a big deal. Originally, Languza was worried that he would kill Shui Jianfeng in one go, so he carefully restrained his strength. However, he slowly realized that this guy was really a very qualified punching bag. Ever since he came to the secular world, he had never felt so comfortable beating someone. Therefore, the power on Languza's fist slowly began to be released. As long as he avoided Shui Jianfeng's fatal points, there would be no problem if he did not kill him in one go. Languza, enough! Lin Yi raised his hand and grabbed Shui Jianfeng in front of him. He had basically understood what was going on. Next, he should try to break this fast healing ability. Otherwise, if he encountered a large group of people like this in the future, it would be too passive. Languza said, unsatisfied. Boss, it's rare to see such a punching bag. Why don't you let me hit you for a while longer? Lin Yi smiled and said, Don't worry, you will have a chance. Lin Yi would not let go of the central base, so this time, Languza really did not have to worry about not having a chance to make a move. Shui Jianfeng calculated in his heart that he still had about 30 seconds left. Languza had only used 30 seconds to cause him to be riddled with holes. Luckily, his recovery was relatively quick. However, this kind of recovery was not without a price. He could already clearly feel that the vital energy in his body was almost completely depleted. Senior Lin, are you satisfied now? Are you going to let me go? Shui Jianfeng continued to use his fake smiling face to numb Lin Yi. The closer it was to the time, the more he didn't dare to be careless, fearing that something unexpected would happen. Lin Yi grabbed onto Shui Jianfeng's arm and felt the emptiness of Shui Jianfeng's Jinqi. He nodded and said, So that's how it is. Your treatment still requires Jinqi as an energy supply. Otherwise, you won't be able to sustain such consumption. Indeed, energy is conserved. What is lost is lost. There is no possibility of it being created out of thin air. In that case, this so-called immortality wasn't actually that scary. As long as Shui Jianfeng's vital energy was quickly consumed, he wouldn't be able to continue healing himself in the end. Understanding this point, Lin Yi immediately felt a lot more at ease. Even if the center could mass-produce such combat personnel, as long as the people on his side had enough strength to protect themselves, then it would not be a problem for them to exhaust the opponent's essential qi. However, doing this was still a little too passive. Lin Yi casually sent a stream of 5 elements killing qi into Shui Jianfeng's body. He wanted to see how destructive the 5 elements killing qi was. Unexpectedly, Shui Jianfeng's remaining vital energy was completely suppressed by the 5 elements killing qi. Those injuries that hadn't completely healed stopped healing themselves. As for Shui Jianfeng, whose body was being ravaged by the 5 elements killing qi, he directly laid on the ground and twitched non-stop. His aura was also rapidly weakening. Boss, this guy can't be having an epileptic fit, right? Why is he foaming at the mouth like a crab? Languza used the tip of his foot to poke Shui Jianfeng's body. He didn't see that Lin Yi's 5 elements killing qi had entered Shui Jianfeng's body. He was still muttering in his heart. Did I go too far just now? Please don't die just like this. If boss restricted him from fighting in the future because of this, it would be bad. Lin Yi smiled faintly. He also didn't expect the 5 elements killing qi to have such a strong restriction on Shui Jianfeng's self-healing ability. In the future, even if the center could produce a guy with the same strength as him, there was nothing to worry about. High up in the sky, the UFO's timer finally hit 0. A ray of light instantly fell and enveloped Shui Jianfeng. It quickly pulled him up. That speed even caught Lin Yi unprepared. Seeing that Shui Jianfeng was pulled back to the UFO by that ray of light, Languza immediately said anxiously, This kid wants to run. Boss, I'll go get that UFO. Lin Yi quickly stretched out his hand and stopped Languza. Wait, let him run. Let him run again. Boss, are you pitying him because you beat him too badly just now? Languza asked with some doubt. Previously in Europe, Lin Yi had let Shui Jianfeng off. Why would he let Shui Jianfeng off this time? Boss's heart was too kind. Seeing Languza's unwilling expression, Lin Yi was instantly delighted. He smiled and patted his shoulder, saying, "Don't worry, we only need him to lead the way now. Let's go take a look at the second base in the center." Before he finished speaking, the UFO created by Han Jingjing and the Supernatural Investigation Bureau had already become bigger. After activating the invisibility device, it floated above the villa. Other than the opening of the hatch below, which revealed the interior space, the rest of the space was empty. Nothing could be seen. Lin Yi turned around and instructed Qin Dongqing. "Dongqing, I'll leave this place to you. As long as Shui Jianfeng doesn't come, no one should be able to threaten you. Grandmaster, rest assured. There will definitely be no problem leaving this place to me." Qin Dongqing quickly bowed and agreed. It was rare for Lin Yi to have a use for him. This made him quite happy. Although it was just a task to watch over the villa, it was enough to make him happy. Languza urged on the side. "Boss, let's go. Otherwise, that guy will disappear without a trace." Lin Yi smiled slightly and entered the UFO's open hatch first. Languza also jumped in. Han Jingjing was already waiting inside. When she saw Lin Yi come in, she smiled and said, "Brother Lin Yi, I'll go with you. Jingjing is very interested in the technology of the center base." "Then let's go. Don't let Shui Jianfeng's UFO really run away." Lin Yi did not object. With him protecting her, Han Jingjing would definitely not be in any danger. Moreover, there was also Languza following. "Brother Lin Yi, don't worry. He can't run away." Han Jingjing smiled sweetly and controlled the UFO to chase after him like lightning. Chapter 5767. If the Supernatural Investigation Bureau wanted to replicate another UFO, even if they succeeded, they wouldn't have enough spiritual jades to power it. Fortunately, Han Jingjing gave them a purely technological design of the UFO, which could be replaced with nuclear power. In terms of the technological system, Han Jingjing referred to the data obtained from the center's computer and improved it. After becoming invisible, Shui Jianfeng's UFO couldn't detect that someone was following them. If Shui Jianfeng was still in his normal state, he might be more careful, but he was being tortured by Lin Yi's murderous aura. Before it was resolved, he couldn't divert his attention to control the UFO. Being able to fly back was completely the system's preset escape plan. In the blink of an eye, Lin Yi's UFO was already close to Shui Jianfeng's UFO, and then they saw the entrance of the chemical plant. "So it's hidden here. I didn't expect it to be in the outskirts of Songshan City. The center is using the principle of hiding under the light. They're really cunning." Lin Yi really didn't expect the center's second base to be so close to his villa. Even when he was advancing, he could have found this base if he extended his divine sense a little more. "Lin Yi Gidge, these guys from the center are really cunning. I hacked into their system before, but I couldn't determine the exact location, so it's really close," Han Jingjing said with some surprise. From this point of view, Han Jingjing even felt that her previous hacking into the network was a failure. Even if she obtained all the information, she couldn't determine the location. It seemed like the other party didn't leave any information about this. They were indeed the masters of cunning. Languza rubbed his hands excitedly and said, "Boss, sister-in-law Jingjing, there seems to be a lot of people here. Let me go down first to open a path for you too." Before he finished speaking, the base's alarm system started ringing crazily. Although Han Jingjing's UFO was invisible, when it followed the UFO in front of it to land, it was detected by the alarm system. "Intruders! They followed Shui Jianfeng's UFO in!" Lan Xiaoru's expression suddenly changed. At this time, the first thing she thought of was the scene when the center's sacred realm was breached by Lin Yi. "Languza, go! Do your best to destroy the facilities in this base." Lin Yi waved his hand casually and ordered Languza calmly. "Don't worry, boss. Leave it to me." Languza laughed and immediately jumped out of the cabin door. Since he had been discovered, then he would attack openly. Anyway, Lin Yi's goal was to find this place. Now that his goal had been achieved, it didn't matter anymore. Shui Jianfeng hurriedly escaped from the flying saucer that had landed first. Although he was unable to resolve the 5 elemental killing intent that was wreaking havoc in his body, his physical strength and true energy had recovered a little during this period of time on the flying saucer. Therefore, he had activated his self-healing ability, allowing him to regain his mobility. Seeing Languza descending from the sky, Shui Jianfeng didn't say a word and turned around to run back into the base. He was already traumatized from the beating he received earlier, and his true energy had just recovered a little. He didn't dare face Languza at all. Jiang Wen was also shocked when he heard the alarm. This base was his blood, sweat, and tears for many years. How was it possible that someone had entered? Most of the most advanced defense systems and weapons were installed outside. In other words, after Lin Yi's flying saucer entered, most of the base's defenses became mere decorations. The base has entered special combat mode. All personnel, get into combat positions. We must eliminate the intruders. Jiang Wen didn't care about the stunned Lan Xiaoru. He pounced on the control panel and yelled at the communicator, activating the base's defense system. Languza hadn't even landed on the ground, and his eyes were already on the escaping Shui Jianfeng. His boss said that the guy was there to lead the way, and since he was already here, there was no use for him anymore. Killing him should be fine, right? As he thought to himself, Languza had already let out a loud roar. His fists released powerful vital energy, and he struck the walls of the base with a loud bang. Before he caught up to Shui Jianfeng, he would first follow his boss' instructions and destroy some of the central facilities. But these walls were all made of alloy, and it wasn't something that could be destroyed with just 2 punches. Languza could only leave 2 deep marks and a violent tremor at most. The tremor hadn't even subsided when round muzzles appeared on the alloy walls. Tongues of flame that were almost a meter long shot out, forming a metal storm on the landing platform. Languza jumped in fright. He quickly curled up his body to protect his vitals, and charged into the door that Shui Jianfeng escaped from. Even so, his body was hit by 200 to 300 bullets in an instant. Fortunately, these high-rate machine gun bullets didn't pose much of a threat to Languza's body. It did hurt a little, but it only left white spots on his body. Unfortunately, the clothes on Languza's body had already become a real tattered outfit. There were burnt black holes everywhere. This made Languza, who liked handsome clothes and styling, unable to tolerate it. Who did this? Get the hell out here! I promise I won't beat you to death! Languza roared angrily, and unleashed all of his abilities. He began to destroy everything in sight with a crackling sound. As for Lin Yi and Han Jingjing, Languza wasn't worried at all. These bullets were enough to hurt normal people, but it wasn't a problem for Lin Yi and Han Jingjing at all. Their Yuanxun was completely immune to physical bullets. Han Jingjing put the flying saucer in her palm and put it into her armor. She smiled at Lin Yi. Lin Yi bro, the command center is welcoming us with firecrackers. They're quite enthusiastic, but it's a little too noisy. I think it's a little noisy too. Let's calm them down a little. Lin Yi smiled faintly. A couple of lightning bolts struck the alloy wall, burning all the wires. All the machine guns stopped firing immediately. Languza, who was in front, was still yelling furiously. Ruining his image was simply an irreconcilable feud. The hundreds of biohumans that Jiang Wen sent out weren't even comparable to ants in front of Languza. The weak biohumans were swept away with a single sweep, and they couldn't even stop Languza's footsteps. Chapter 5768. Jiang Wen's face was pale as he looked at the monitor. In fact, wherever Lin Yi and the others walked past, the monitors all turned black, and nothing could be seen. But the entire base was rumbling, and he didn't need to look to know that it was going to be forcefully demolished. Thinking about how much time and effort it took to build this second base, Jiang Wen wanted to vomit blood. This damned Lin Yi, he really was his nemesis. When Lin Yi wasn't around, everything went smoothly for him. Now that he met his nemesis, he'd lose everything he'd earned. Lan Xiaoru was helpless as well. She'd done so much, and she really thought that she'd be able to take out Lin Yi's primordial spirit this time. Who would have thought that Lin Yi would come knocking on their door again? It had only been a few days. Was the self-destruction scene going to happen again? Miss Lan, let's retreat. It'll be too late otherwise, Bao Long said, panicking. He'd inherited the glasses professor's memories, yes, but his fear of Lin Yi wasn't any less than Shui Jianfeng's, especially after House King's defeat at the hands of Lin Yi. It'd be weird if he wasn't scared now, especially after what happened. Lan Qiru smiled bitterly. Leave? Go where? If we lose this second base, do we still have a base to stay in? The center's main focus was on Sky-class Island, and there weren't many resources in the common world. Plus, the ancient Jianghu's operation had failed, and they'd lost a lot of resources. Losing 2 bases in a row was something even Lan Xiaoru couldn't accept. The third base did have plans, but it was still in the construction phase and couldn't be used. As for the other bases under the center's control, they couldn't satisfy Lan Xiaoru's research needs. Jiang Wen and Dao Long fell silent. If they could take out Lin Yi, self-destructing a base was nothing, but if the explosion from the center didn't manage to stop Lin Yi, this second base wouldn't have any effect. Most importantly, although the center was powerful, it had always been hidden in the dark. Otherwise, it would be boycotted by the scientific institutions of various countries, and that would be a tough time. Lin Yi, stop first. Let's talk. Lan Qiru sighed softly. She could only shout to Lin Yi through the base's broadcast system. Miss Lan, what are you going to do? Lin Yi is such a dangerous guy. How can you meet and negotiate with him? We should hurry up and leave. Where there's life, there's hope. Bao Long panicked. He didn't want to see Lin Yi at all. Who could stop him if he wanted to kill him? Lan Xiaoru ignored Zhao Long and repeated her words. She was just a clone, after all, and it didn't matter if she died. As long as she had the genetic data, she could be reborn at any time. Lin Yi looked up at a surveillance camera above his head. This time, he did not continue to destroy it. Instead, he smiled at the camera and said, Miss Lan? We meet again so soon. Last time, you self-destructed so miserably. Are you going to self-destruct again this time? With the center's technology, Lin Yi believed that Lan Xiaoru could hear what he said, so he didn't bother to use telepathy or anything like that. Lan Xiaoru laughed and said, Lin Yi, you're not afraid of me, are you? Otherwise, you wouldn't be afraid to come and negotiate with me. How about it? Tell your little brother Flood Dragon to stop first. If this place collapses, we'll all die together. Lin Yi shrugged, looking nonchalant. It didn't matter how big the impact was, it had nothing to do with him. Plus, this was the center of the city, and there weren't any civilians living nearby. Blowing this place up wouldn't cause any casualties. As for Lan Xiaoru saying that Lin Yi didn't dare to negotiate with her, he didn't take it to heart. He came all the way here to catch them. Now that his divine sense had locked down the entire area, even if Lan Xiaoru wanted to run, she wouldn't be able to escape from his lockdown. Languza, just destroy most of this place, don't make it collapse. Lin Yi shouted deliberately. Languza also responded loudly from afar. Lan Xiaoru's expression was getting uglier and uglier, but there was nothing she could do. Now that all the combat power in this base had been brought out, not to mention Lin Yi, even if it was just Languza himself, there was no way he could be stopped. This time, it was the center that provoked them first, and Lin Yi seized the opportunity to beat them up on the ground. It couldn't be helped. They asked for it, who else could they blame? Lin Yi's divine sense found that Lan Xiaoru, Zhao Long, and Jiang Wen had no intention of running. It seemed that they really wanted to negotiate, so he didn't delay and continued on the shortest route, walking slowly. The wall of the control room was made by Lin Yi with a wave of his hand. It was just enough for 2 people to walk side by side. With this newly opened door, he and Han Jingjing walked in hand. Lan Xiaoru, Jiang Wen, and Zhao Long were already standing in front of this wall. Obviously, they knew that Lin Yi would come through here, so their expressions were very calm. Jiang Wen, why is it you again? Didn't I warn you last time that I'll kill you if you come out and cause trouble again? It seems like you didn't take it to heart at all. Lin Yi knew that Jiang Wen was here, but he acted like he just found out and said coldly. Jiang Wen's heart skipped a beat. His fear of Lin Yi was also bone deep. When he heard Lin Yi mention what he said on the phone last time, he immediately shook his head and said, "It's none of my business. I'm just following orders. Plus, I've never been to that house of yours even once. If you want to find trouble, go find Shui Jianfeng, don't come looking for me." At this critical moment, Jiang Wen didn't hesitate to use Shui Jianfeng as a shield. After all, he didn't like this arrogant guy for a long time. If it wasn't for him bringing Lin Yi back, this base wouldn't have become like this. Lin Yi smiled coldly. "You're already standing here, and you're still saying it's none of your business? Do you think I'm a 3-year-old? I'll deal with you later." Jiang Wen was dumbfounded. Was Lin Yi targeting him? But there was another big boss here. Of course, he didn't dare say this out loud. Either side wouldn't let him go. Chapter 5769. Lin Yi smiled faintly and said, "Just say what you want to say. Whether I underestimated you or not, I know better than you. Lin Yi, can your little brother Jiaolong stop now? Isn't it good to be quiet when we're negotiating?" Lan Xiaoru suddenly smiled very gently, which made Lin Yi, who had seen how crazy she self-destructed, very uncomfortable. Feeling that the facilities of the entire base were almost destroyed by Languza, Lin Yi didn't waste any time and called him back. Languza, who was wearing a tattered outfit, obviously hadn't vented enough. Seeing the 3 core figures in the center, he stared at them with an extremely unfriendly expression. Lan Xiaoru nodded nonchalantly and said, "It's much quieter now. Mr. Lin, please come and sit down." Pointing to the sofa in the control room, Lan Xiaoru walked over and sat down first, finally recovering her previous domineering style. Jiang Wen and Kang Xiaolong were qualified to sit with Lan Xiaoru, but these 2 guys always felt a wave of fear when facing Lin Yi. Especially in this situation, if they could escape, they definitely didn't want to appear in front of Lin Yi, so they simply stood behind the sofa, hoping that Lin Yi wouldn't notice them. Lan Xiaoru was also helpless towards these 2 guys' behavior. With this kind of cowardly behavior, how could she count on them to deal with Lin Yi in the future? But now was not the time to care about them, she would deal with them when she had time in the future. Lin Yi took Han Jingjing's hand and sat down with a golden saber. He said calmly, "Now you can speak. Do you want to apologize to me or what?" Lan Xiaoru combed the hair on her forehead, and a mocking smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. "Admit my mistake and apologize? Aren't you thinking too highly of yourself? I admit that I can't kill you, but this doesn't mean I'm afraid of you. You know that I'm immortal, so are these people of yours in the secular world?" Lin Yi's expression changed slightly. Lan Xiaoru was clearly using the people in the villa to threaten him, but he couldn't refute her. This second base was indeed more than half destroyed, but Lan Xiaoru was right. Even if Lin Yi killed her here again, she would still be alive and kicking after a few days, and it was impossible for Lin Yi to stay in the secular world and not return to Heaven Stage Island. Lan Xiaoru was determined to target the people in the villa, so there was nothing Lin Yi could do. Even if he left Languza and Qindongqing to protect them, they would still be caught off guard. "Miss Blue, are you threatening me?" Lin Yi said with a cold smile. Even if he was really threatened, he would not show the slightest difference. Instead, he would be more domineering. "If it's a threat, you can give it a try. Let's see if the center will still appear in this world." Lan Xiaoru was silent for a moment, then she smiled and said, "I'm just letting you know this fact." "Why are you so agitated?" Lin Yi didn't want to continue this topic, so he said, "I have always maintained a delicate balance with your center. This time, you uncharacteristically want to put me to death. Is it your personal intention, or the center's intention? Do you want to start an all-out war with me?" Lan Xiaoru was startled. Obviously, she didn't expect Lin Yi to say it so straightforwardly. She immediately shook her head and said, "You're wrong. Your spirit will be destroyed, but your physical body won't die because your spirit came here through projection. So if I kill your spirit body here, there won't be any problem with your physical body on Heaven Stage Island. In this way, you'll still be alive. It won't be considered breaking the rules, and your elders won't be desperate enough to risk their lives. You're the desperate one who wants to risk your life, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't have caused so much trouble. Lin Yi snorted coldly. He finally understood the center's wishful thinking. It was rare that Lan Xiaoru didn't hide it, and she had some attitude of negotiating openly. As long as his physical body wasn't destroyed, even if he lost his spirit, Lin Yi's elders still felt that there was a chance to save him, so Lan Xiaoru thought that this was an excellent opportunity. And if Lin Yi died, no one in the secular world, Heaven Stage Island, or even the small ancient underworld could restrain him. Then, the center's days would definitely be much better, and its development would be much smoother. This was Lan Xiaoru's real purpose. Lin Yi knew that it was meaningless to talk about this anymore. He immediately crossed his legs and put on a high posture of a winner. Okay, there's no need to talk about these things anymore. Just tell me how you're going to compensate me for my loss. Lan Xiaoru's pretty face darkened slightly. What loss do you have? It's our center that lost, okay? 2 entire bases were destroyed, and we even lost 2 of our most capable people. Can't you have some shame? Lin Yi, Mr. Lin. I hope you understand that I'm not begging for your forgiveness, but a fair negotiation with you. I can guarantee that I won't take the initiative to attack you and the people around you in the future. This matter will end here. What do you think? Lan Xiaoru also knew that Lin Yi wouldn't give up without some benefits, but of course, she couldn't reveal her bottom line in a negotiation, so she threw out such an argument to see Lin Yi's reaction first. Lin Yi sneered and said, "Do you think I will believe your words just based on your insincere performance? Instead of that, why should I waste time negotiating with you? In short, show me your sincerity, or it will end here." Lan Xiaoru smiled calmly and said, "What sincerity do you want me to show? It's true that I was the one who provoked you 2 times, but it's also my side that suffered the greatest loss. The 2 bases are almost all the trump cards in my hand. You know the situation better than me now. Even if I want to deal with you again, I can't. What are you still worried about?" Lin Yi didn't say anything, just looked at Lan Xiaoru coldly. It was useless to say this kind of nonsense. If this woman only wanted to pretend to be polite and deceive him, he would have to consider whether he should cut off all means of retreat, kill them regardless of the loss, and then wipe out the remaining forces of the center all over the world. As for those people in the villa, they definitely couldn't stay in the secular world anymore. Kan Xiaobo, Lai Changyi, and the others must give up everything and all move into the immemorial underworld. With Lin Yi's prestige and power in the immemorial underworld, he should be able to ensure their safety. However, unless it was absolutely necessary, Lin Yi would never do this. Chapter 5770. Previously, she said that she wouldn't take the initiative to attack Lin Yi and the people around him in the future, and there was no time limit. Not to mention Lin Yi, even she didn't believe it herself. The 1-year limit made her words more convincing. After all, the Central Command Center had indeed suffered a great loss this time, and even a year of recuperation might not be enough to recover. Lin Yi was also very helpless. If he could uproot the Central Command Center this time, he wouldn't hesitate to kill them all, but these guys couldn't be killed completely. If the secular world wasn't stable, he wouldn't be able to feel at ease even if he returned to Heaven Island. Being able to hurt the Central Command Center today and make them promise not to deal with Lin Yi's people for a period of time was an acceptable result. Time. Not only did the Central Command need it, but he also needed it very much. While Lin Yi was still thinking, Lan Xiaoru spoke again. "Mr. Lin, when you return to Heaven Island, you might run into me. I know you have a lot of businesses and close friends on Heaven Island. If we can't coexist peacefully, it's best if you can appear in multiple places at the same time like me. You also know that there are all kinds of natural disasters in the world now. You probably can't save everyone in every place by yourself, right? I said, don't threaten me, it's useless against me," Lin Yi said calmly, but his heart tightened. Lan Xiaoru had the cloning technology to create a clone, but he only had one. If the Central Command Center's Chamber of Commerce on Heaven Island suddenly launched an operation against him, the damage would definitely be devastating. If it wasn't for the fear of the elders behind Lin Yi, the strength of the Central Command Center was indeed not something that Lin Yi could fight alone. Lan Xiaoru smiled indifferently. Mr. Lin, it's good that you don't threaten me. How would I dare to threaten you? As I said before, this is just a statement of fact. After a slight pause, Lan Xiaoru softened her tone and said, In any case, we lost this time. The information you copied from Base 2's system can be considered as compensation. I won't ask for it back. Heh! How generous! Using something that already belongs to us as compensation, how sincere! Lin Yi looked at Lan Xiaoru mockingly and said without any trace of politeness. Since you know that you lost this time and took the initiative to surrender, do you believe that I won't blow this place up if you don't take out some practical benefits? Although most of Base 2's facilities had been destroyed, the overall structure was still intact. In terms of losses, it was at most 30% to 40%. If Lin Yi really wanted to blow this place up, then Central Command would really suffer a huge loss. Lan Xiaoru was silent for a moment before she asked, What do you want? These are the only things here. Is there anything else that catches your eye? Lin Yi also scratched his head. Yes, this place was already like this. Was there anything valuable left? He had only said it casually. He felt that it would be a loss if he did not ask for some benefits. However, he did not know what conditions he should ask for. The most important thing for Central Command was, of course, technology. However, all the information of Base 2 had been copied by Han Jingjing. It was meaningless for Lin Yi to ask Central Command to compensate tens of billions of yuan. Han Jingjing, who had been silent all this while, suddenly said, Big brother Lin Yi, I saw a record in their information. It said that Central Command found a wormhole tunnel that connects to Heavenly Island. After using technology to improve it, things can be transmitted between each other. However, there is no detailed information here. Lin Yi's eyes lit up. That's right, that's it. Back then, he had won the right to transmit a letter at the auction and received a reply from the secular world. The Central Chamber of Commerce on Heavenly Island also continuously sold technological products from the secular world. All of this was probably because of this wormhole tunnel. What could be more precious than this? Lin Yi couldn't help but feel a little excited. He immediately said, This shouldn't be fake, right? Lan Xiaoru admitted generously. That's right. There are so many things from the secular world on Heavenly Island. I think you guys have already guessed it. However, it is impossible for you guys to take over this wormhole tunnel. Han Jingjing smiled and said, I know you guys won't let us monopolize this wormhole tunnel, but opening this location and letting us participate in the research of the wormhole shouldn't be a problem, right? You have to know that I can return to Heavenly Island at any time and project back to the secular world at any time. Since I know the existence of this wormhole, do you think I can find its location? Lan Xiaoru was slightly startled. Only then did she realize that her threat just now was a little ridiculous. Not to mention that Central Command still had scruples and did not dare to launch a full-scale attack on the people around Lin Yi. Even if they had no scruples, with a genius like Han Jingjing around, they might not be able to gain the overall upper hand. Especially with their method of sending their primordial spirits back and forth, it seemed to be more convenient than her contacting Heavenly Island. If they really wanted to launch a full-scale attack, they would be completely suppressed by Han Jingjing in terms of timing. To be honest, the research on the wormhole tunnel was still in its early stages. If they could let Han Jingjing participate in the research, the progress would be much faster. This wasn't a bad thing for Central Command. I understand, but I can't make the decision on this matter. I need to discuss it with the main body of Heavenly Island first. If it's possible, then we'll come to a temporary ceasefire for a year. What do you think? Lan Xiaoru only hesitated for a moment before giving her reply. Although she didn't agree on the spot, Lin Yi thought that this was already half a success. All right, if that's the case, we'll go back first today. Let us know when you have news. Lin Yi stood up and prepared to leave with Han Jingjing and Languza. Seeing Jiang Wen and Zhao Long cowering behind the sofa, Lin Yi stopped in his tracks and warned. Jiang Wen, remember my words. Behave, or you won't be so lucky next time. And Zhao Long, don't learn from your idiot brother. You won't die if you don't look for trouble, understand? If it wasn't for the fact that they couldn't uproot Central Command at the moment, and could only choose to stop for a year, Lin Yi wouldn't let these guys go today. Even Shui Jianfeng, who was hiding in a room in the corner of the base, wouldn't let these guys go. But overall, Lin Yi didn't lose out in these two battles. Instead, he gained quite a lot of benefits. It didn't matter if he let them go. Chapter 57-71. Before leaving, Lin Yi secretly left a divine sense mark on Lan Xiuru and the others. As long as they were still in the secular world, he would be able to know their location at any time. This way, even if he let them go today, it would be very easy to find them in the future. It was a pity that he forgot to leave a divine sense mark on Shui Jianfeng. However, this guy was no longer a concern. Lin Yi was too lazy to find him again. He would deal with it next time. After leaving the control room, Lin Yi directly broke a big hole in the top floor and jumped up with the two of them. In midair, Han Jingjing released the UFO that had shrunk. After the three of them entered, they disappeared in a flash. Back at the villa, the news of the center admitting defeat was announced. Everyone was naturally very happy. Although they did not completely eliminate the center, such a victory was necessary to have a simple celebration. Big Brother Duffing brought Chendongcheng to Lin Yi and bowed respectfully. Boss Lin Yi, you are still the best. You took care of two of the center's bases at once. This time, they should really know their place. Come, sit down and talk. Lin Yi asked the two of them to sit down. It just so happened that he was also thinking about how to arrange things for these two people. Thank you, boss, Marshal Uncle. Both of them replied respectfully and sat down beside Lin Yi. Chendongcheng was very excited now. When he heard the news of the center admitting defeat, he felt that he was really wise. Being able to join Lin Yi's sect was much better than being a lab rat in the center. Shui Jianfeng, that idiot, could not understand why he was beaten like a dead dog. Was it fun? In the past, he felt that the center was very powerful, but now Chendongcheng felt that Lin Yi was even more powerful. He could beat the center to the ground. It was simply too powerful. Lin Yi looked at the two of them and asked faintly, Duffing Dongqing, what plans do you two have for the future? Both of them were startled. When they remembered that Lin Yi could not always keep them by his side, they were suddenly at a loss. Big Brother Feng was already used to being an undercover in the center. Now that he was suddenly cleared, he really did not think about where he could go and what he could do. Chendongcheng was almost the same. He could go back to the Green Cloud sect in the North Island, but there was Yue in the Green Cloud sect in the North Island. Even if he went back, he would not have much room for development. Especially when he thought that if he went back and faced Yue's pretentious face all day, how bad would his mood be? Boss Lin Yi, I originally planned to stay by your side and serve you, but I heard that you can't bring anyone with you when you go back to Sky State Island, so I don't know what to do. Duffing Bro thought for a long time and could only smile bitterly. His roots were all in the center. Now that he had betrayed the center, everything in the past had nothing to do with him. When he thought about it carefully, he felt a little disappointed. Lin Yi nodded and did not say anything. He did not know how to arrange for Big Brother Feng at the moment. If it did not work out, he would let Kong Xiaobo take Big Brother Feng into the business world first. If there was a chance in the future, he would take him to Heaven Island. Chendongcheng glanced at Lin Yi and said carefully, Marshal Uncle, I don't want to go back to the ancient underworld. Shui Jianfeng is still in the center. If Marshal Uncle goes back to Heaven Island, there must be someone who can fight against him in the secular world, lest he sneak attacks us. In fact, Chendongcheng felt that staying in the secular world was more carefree, but in order to be able to perform in front of Lin Yi, he deliberately brought up Shui Jianfeng. You are considerate. Lin Yi smiled faintly. If he were to return to Sky-class Island, the common world would indeed need someone who could stay behind to hold the fort. He had originally wanted Languza to stay behind, but it was good that Qingdongqing had suggested it himself. However, Languza's strength could suppress Shui Jianfeng, but Qingdongqing might not be able to. If Qingdongqing was the only one left, Lin Yi had to find a way to improve Qingdongqing's strength. As for whether Languza would go to Heaven Island, it would be decided when the time came. Since you want to stay and help me protect the people here, I will not treat you badly. In addition to the martial arts techniques of the North Island's Blue Cloud sect, I will also give you a detailed explanation of the Snow Sword sect's martial arts techniques. When you fight against Shui Jianfeng, you will not be at a disadvantage. In addition to the martial arts techniques, Lin Yi also wanted to see if Han Jingjing could update the automatic alchemy device. If he could use the sea beast's inner core to refine pills, Qingdongqing's strength could be improved a lot. As long as Han Jingjing could let Lin Yi's alchemy furnace refine the sea beast's inner core, the profound ascending stage sea beast's inner core in his jade pendant space might be refined into a spirit cultivating pill, which could be used to improve Qingdongqing's strength. After returning to Heaven Island, he would let Languza hunt some profound ascending stage sea beasts in the sea. Then he would not have to worry about the main material of the spirit cultivating pill. Thank you, Grand Master. Qingdongqing did not know that Lin Yi still wanted to refine the spirit cultivating pill for him. Just agreeing to let him stay in the secular world made him very happy. Moreover, with the weaknesses of the Snow Sword sect's martial arts techniques, after targeted practice, Shui Jianfeng would not be afraid, especially when Lin Yi also gave him the follow-up martial arts techniques of the North Island's Blue Cloud sect. After thoroughly understanding them, his strength would definitely be able to improve to another level. Train well, I won't mistreat you. Lin Yi nodded faintly, then turned to Dafeng Bro and said, Dafeng, I haven't thought about your arrangements yet, so let's wait and see. If you have any ideas, you can tell me anytime, I will definitely arrange it for you. I understand, thank you, boss. Dafeng Bro quickly smiled and thanked him, then pulled Qingdongqing up and left. There were too many people who wanted to talk to Lin Yi. It was already good enough that the two of them could talk to each other for a while. They couldn't always occupy Lin Yi's place and annoy people. As expected, as soon as Dafeng Bro and Qingdongqing left, Yu Bing and Yu Dake walked over, ready to talk to Lin Yi. One day later, Lan Xiu took the initiative to contact Lin Yi, saying that Heaven Island had already agreed to share the location of the wormhole with them, and that they could also cooperate with Han Jingjing to research and develop the wormhole. As for the specifics, Lin Yi and the others had to go over and discuss it again. Chapter 57-72. This guy still remembered the holes in his clothes, but he didn't think about the fact that he almost demolished the second base. Lan Xiaoru, Jiang Wen, and the others didn't even have a place to cry. Qingdongqing also wanted to go. He wanted Shui Jianfeng to see that after he left the center, his life was much better than Shui Jianfeng's. Lin Yi waved his hand. We're not going to fight today. You guys don't have to follow. I'll go with Jingjing. Speaking of this, Lin Yi seemed to have thought of something and turned to Dafeng Bro. Dafeng, come with me. You might be able to help. Dafeng Bro was startled and quickly stepped forward. Okay, boss. As for Lin Yi saying that he could help, Dafeng Bro couldn't think of anything. Could it be that he wanted to use his undercover identity to anger Lan Xiaoru and the others? Bringing Qingdongqing seemed to have the same effect, right? Although he was confused, Dafeng Bro didn't ask much. Anyway, he just followed Lin Yi's orders. When he was in the center's holy, he had already sworn in his heart that he would sacrifice his life for his boss. The three of them got on the flying saucer and arrived above the second base in the blink of an eye. Languza only destroyed the internal equipment. From the outside, there didn't seem to be much damage. Other than the huge skylight that Lin Yi opened when he left, it basically maintained the appearance of the chemical factory. Lin Yi's divine sense swept the entire base first. Lan Xiu and the others were among them. Even Shui Jianfeng was on the side. The base's defense system was basically paralyzed, and there were no other ambushes. It seemed that the people in the center really didn't have any thoughts of playing tricks. After confirming that it was safe, Lin Yi took Han Jingjing and Dafeng Bro and jumped down from the skylight he opened. They went directly to the place where they met last time. This time, it was still Lan Shiru sitting on the sofa alone, with Jiang Wen, Zhao Long, and Shui Jianfeng standing behind her. Seeing Lin Yi walk in, all three of them, other than Lan Xiaoru, had unnatural expressions on their faces. Lan Xiaoru did not stand up to welcome Lin Yi, and Lin Yi did not intend to waste time greeting her. When passing by Shui Jianfeng, Lin Yi also made a spiritual sense mark on him, then he pulled Han Jingjing to sit down. After signaling Brother Dafeng to sit down together, Lin Yi said straightforwardly, "Miss Lan, we can start talking now." Lan Shiru was still a little confused about Big Brother Feng's arrival. She didn't know why Lin Yi brought him here, but she wouldn't care about a traitor. She glanced at him and ignored him. Picking up the two documents on the table, she pushed them to Lin Yi and said, "This is the agreement. It is agreed that the war will be armistice for a year, and the wormhole tunnel will be open for your research. If there are no problems, sign it." Lin Yi picked it up with a smile, flipped it twice, and said, "Do you think this is business? Why sign an agreement? I don't think this kind of thing will have any binding force on you." Similarly, this thing would not have any binding force on Lin Yi. It was definitely not a piece of paper that could make both sides have a temporary truce. It was the comparison of the strength of both sides and their respective scruples. A year of armistice was the time that the center of the secular world calculated that they could recover. It was also the buffer period that Lin Yi estimated that he could improve his strength and find a way to deal with the center. Both sides had this intention, so they reached this kind of armistice agreement. Lin Yi had no doubt that during this year, if there were any changes in the center, such as a significant increase in strength or any favorable progress in the confrontation with Lin Yi's elders, this agreement would immediately be torn to shreds and thrown into the garbage basket. Lan Xiaoru snorted and said, "We pay the most attention to the spirit of the contract, so it's normal to sign an agreement. Are you going to tear it up before reaching an agreement?" Lin Yi smiled faintly. This woman wasn't just a lunatic, she was a shameless lunatic as well. Everything she said had to be taken the other way around. However, Lin Yi had no doubts about this one-year armistice agreement. As long as the center's strength did not suddenly skyrocket, they should maintain this agreement. Even if it was not for a year, it should be at least 10 months. "I'm too lazy to talk nonsense with you. Since you like to sign an agreement, then sign it." Lin Yi flipped through it again, but he was not very clear about the content of this agreement, so he handed it to Han Jingjing. When Han Jingjing appeared as Lu Jinghan, she was the helmsman of the Lu Group, an absolute business goddess. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was a waste of talent to let her read this kind of agreement. To be honest, Lin Yi admired Han Jingjing very much. Whether it was in business, scientific research, or cultivation, she could become one of the top people. It was not an exaggeration to say that such a genius was hard to come by in 1,000 years. After Han Jingjing took the document, she casually flipped through it. Her movements were similar to Lin Yi's just now. She only glanced at each page. In just 10 seconds, the document was flipped by her. People who were not familiar with her would think that she was just flipping through it randomly. Only those who had dealt with Lu Jinghan would understand that she would still not miss a word in this situation. There is nothing in general, but there is one thing here. Can you trouble Miss Lan to explain it to us? Han Jingjing turned the document upside down, turned it to the middle, and pointed to a small line in it. Lin Yi also glanced at it, but he did not find anything wrong. However, since Han Jingjing specifically pointed it out, it was obvious that there was a problem in it. Lan Shiru's face was calm. She faintly looked at the place where Han Jingjing's finger pointed and nodded. "I'm sorry. My men probably made a mistake. I will make a new copy for you." She had a notebook next to her. She picked it up and tapped a few times on the keyboard. The printer in the corner began to print out the agreement. Lin Yi secretly sneered. It was all ready. If Han Jingjing did not find the problem, it would be fine. If she found it, she could reprint it immediately. The most rare thing was that Lan Xiaoru actually acted as if nothing had happened. Her skin was really thick. However, Lin Yi did not care much about this agreement, so he was too lazy to ask Han Jingjing what problem she found. As long as it was corrected, it was fine. Chapter 5773. Han Jingjing looked through it again and didn't find any hidden problems. She also knew that Lin Yi didn't mind, but since they were going to sign, they couldn't leave anything behind. No problem, but these are the terms you proposed. We haven't even said anything yet. Han Jingjing had completely entered Lu Jing'an's mode. She put down the agreement calmly and got into a negotiating stance. Lan Xiaoru nodded nonchalantly. You can say it. Go ahead. Han Jingjing turned to look at Lin Yi. She said this only to set up a stage for Lin Yi. In the end, it was still Lin Yi who decided what to say. Lin Yi had already thought about it before coming, so he said confidently, I only have one request. Other than developing the wormhole tunnel together, I want to send a spokesperson here. Let's make him the director of your center. You guys know this person, it's Dafeng. Dafeng Bro was slightly startled when his name was called, but he couldn't go against Lin Yi's decision, so he immediately accepted Lin Yi's appointment without any problems. As for whether there would be any difficulties or dangers, he completely ignored it. Jiang Wen, who was standing behind, couldn't help but ask. Lin Yi, I'm the chief commander of the center. What do you mean by making me a director? Director means to keep an eye on you guys, especially since you're the commander-in-chief. I need to know if you're going to jump out and cause trouble again. What, you got a problem with that? Lin Yi said as he looked at Jiang Wen coldly, his tone unquestionable. I don't have a problem with that. Jiang Wen was extremely aggrieved, but he didn't dare to act presumptuously in front of Lin Yi. He knew that a wise man knew better than to fight when the odds were against him, and Lin Yi had a deep impression of it. After all, Lin Yi had always comforted himself like this. Lan Xiaoru was also a little speechless. Lin Yi used the pretense of a joint research and truce to openly put the undercover Dafeng Bro back. This was indeed a genius idea. No problem. If you want a spokesperson director, then it's fine. But aren't you afraid that I might kill him at any time? Lan Xiaoru readily agreed. It was not a problem for her to let in a spy who was in the open. Perhaps she could make use of him in the future. On the other hand, Big Brother Feng was quite daring. After betraying the center, he still dared to come back in such a high-profile manner. He really didn't know how to write the word death. Lin Yi shrugged and said nonchalantly, It doesn't matter. You can kill me if you want. However, even if I return to Heavenly Island, I can still return to the secular world at any time. Other people's primordial spirit projection is limited, but I don't. As you can see, my primordial spirit has been projecting for so long without any problems, so there won't be any problems if I repeat it. Han Jingjing looked at Lan Xiaoru with a smile. Her meaning was clear. She could also project her primordial spirit down at any time, and with her here, it would be much easier for the people on Heavenly Island to project their primordial spirit down. If Lan Xiaoru dared to touch Dafeng Bro, she would have to be prepared for revenge. Dafeng Bro naturally supported Lin Yi. He immediately stood up and laughed. I, Dafeng Bro, am not someone who is afraid of death. If you dare to touch me, you will die at most. But I believe that boss will come back to uphold justice for me. Don't worry, boss. With me here, these guys definitely won't be able to play any tricks. What's there to be proud of for a traitor? Jiang Wen couldn't help but look down on Dafeng Bro. He didn't dare to go crazy on Lin Yi directly, so he could only vent his anger on Dafeng Bro. Unfortunately, Dafeng Bro was a foundational practitioner, after all. He heard every single word and glared at Jiang Wen. Jiang Wen, what are you talking about? Are you looking for trouble? I've always been Boss Lin Yi's subordinate. Saying I'm a traitor is a joke. Come over here, I'm not a joking director. Jiang Wen shivered and quickly smiled. No, Director Dafeng, you heard wrongly. I didn't say anything. Even if Lin Yi left the mortal world, Jiang Wen wouldn't dare offend Da Bro. He knew that he was just a small shrimp in Lin Yi's eyes. It didn't matter how much trouble he caused, but if he touched Lin Yi's bottom line, he would definitely be killed mercilessly by Lin Yi. Most importantly, he was the commander of the center, and if Lin Yi were to kill him, no one would think about avenging him. He hadn't even started his rebirth plan yet, and if he were to die now, he'd be dead for good. He had to endure when he had to. Da Bro felt relaxed. It wasn't bad to be able to return to the center. With his boss supporting him, not only would the people in the center not dare to kill him, they would also protect him. I'm talking about you, Shuijian. Our boss and sis-in-law have been here for so long, and they don't even have a cup of tea. Is that right? I'm not a director who doesn't care about anything. Even if it's a small matter like this, I can't be careless, understand? Hurry up and make some tea! Da Bro pointed at Shui Jianfeng and yelled. Even if he was a fox pretending to be a tiger, he had to show his authority first. You! Shui Jianfeng was furious, but when he saw Lin Yi looking at him with a smile that didn't look like a smile, he immediately swallowed the second half of the sentence, seeking death. It couldn't be helped. Lin Yi's 5 elements murderous aura was still in his body. It was too painful for it to flare up from time to time. Even when Languza punched him like a dead dog, it wasn't as terrifying as Lin Yi's 5 elements murderous aura. He didn't know when it would completely dissipate. What you? Are you not convinced? If you're not convinced, just say it. Your bro Feng is listening. Da Bro glared at Shui Jianfeng fiercely. Which Foundation establishment stage cultivator dared to yell at a profound ascending stage cultivator like him? And that profound ascending stage cultivator could only hold it in and not speak? Shui Jianfeng almost had an internal injury from holding it in. It was fine if he was bullied in the center, but even a traitor in the center dared to give him a hard time. What profound ascending stage? What immortal body? It's all bullshit. Chapter 57-74. Shui Jianfeng didn't dare to respond to Lin Yi's glare. He snorted and turned his head away, pretending that he didn't hear Da Bro's words. However, he swore to himself that when his strength increased, it didn't matter if it was the people from the center or Lin Yi's people, they would all die. Jiang Wen and Zhao Lung's faces were very ugly. Da Bro's behavior was completely disregarding them. It was simply intolerable. For a moment, these guys actually felt a sense of solidarity against the common enemy. This effect was also what Lan Xiaoru was happy to see, so she didn't have the slightest intention of interfering with Da Bro's actions. This wasn't just because she was afraid of Lin Yi. The 3 generals under her had been giving her a headache for a long time. If she could use Da Bro's hand to bring them together, it would definitely be a very big harvest. The proposals of both sides were approved, and the 2 agreements were signed smoothly. Han Jingjing received the wormhole information from the center, and after preliminary verification, it should be true. This time, the negotiations were basically completed successfully. Boss Lin Yi, don't worry. With me, Da Bro, watching over the center, I won't let these guys cause trouble for you. Da Bro patted his chest with a ruddy face and promised. After Lin Yi and Han Jingjing went back, he would directly stay here and start his work as the director of the center. Although these guys don't dare to touch you, you have to be careful. I don't want to hear any news of you getting hurt. Lin Yi warned, but he was still more assured about Da Bro's safety. Thank you, boss. I understand. I was still hesitating about what I could do before, but boss actually sent me back to the center. This is indeed the most suitable place for me, and I don't need to completely give up my years of operation. Take care, boss. Da Bro bowed respectfully. He was really happy. Lin Yi also thought for a long time before coming up with this arrangement. Take care. Goodbye. Lin Yi brought Han Jingjing onto the flying saucer. With a wave of his hand, the flying saucer flew towards the direction of the villa. After returning to the villa, Han Jingjing immediately started researching the information on the wormhole. These things had to be understood as soon as possible. Otherwise, if they returned to Heaven Island and discovered the problem, it would take too long for them to settle accounts. Linny also wanted to take the opportunity to test the upgraded automatic alchemy furnace. If he could refine pills with sea beast inner cores, he could refine some foundation establishment pills and gold core golden pills for the people in the secular world. After telling them not to disturb him, Linny returned to his room, took out the Shinong cauldron, and turned on the automatic alchemy device. Han Jingjing's familiar smiling face popped up on the touchscreen, and the text below was updated. Jingjing has built an intelligent alchemy system for Linny Gidge. After entering the system interface, there was an additional option. Spiritual alchemy, fire alchemy. Linny was a little excited when he saw it. It was similar to the first time he was refining pills. Thinking about how he tried so many times in the ancient underworld, he couldn't refine a furnace of pills with sea beast inner cores. Now he finally succeeded. It was really not easy. After choosing spiritual alchemy, fire alchemy, a few small options appeared. They were similar to the previous ones: refining known pills, analysis of unknown pills, and so on. Linny had given Han Jingjing several pill recipes before, and she had already entered them, so she could directly choose the known pills to refine. Linny still kept a lot of the sea beast inner cores he obtained in the ancient underworld. Now, he chose a foundation establishment pill from these pill recipes. Please wait, Jingjing is generating the refining script for the foundation establishment pill for Brother Linny. After Jingjing's calculation, putting in 3 sets of materials at a time will get the greatest benefits. However, the sea beast inner cores should be of the same attribute, and the difference in level cannot be too big, otherwise, it will affect the effect. Linny quickly selected 3 sea beast inner cores of the same attribute and the same level. He did not doubt Han Jingjing's reminder. If he put in 3 sea beast inner cores that did not meet the requirements, it was not impossible for him to fail directly. Except for the sea beast inner cores, the rest of the materials were very ordinary. Lin Yi's stock of elixirs was quite large, so he did not have to worry about this aspect. After putting the 3 sets of materials into the Shinong cauldron, he pressed the OK button. The words "analyzing" appeared on the screen, and soon the results jumped out. The refining script for the foundation establishment pill has been generated. According to the weight of the materials, there are 3 sets of high-quality materials. The refining time is estimated to be 1 hour and 25 minutes. It is estimated that 5 elixirs can be obtained. Please prepare the alchemy fire and continue to input. In terms of time, it was faster than using the true Qi alchemy fire and elixirs to refine the foundation establishment pill. For this, Lin Yi was quite satisfied. In less than 1.5 hours, he could refine 5 foundation establishment pills. This speed was absolutely against the natural order. After condensing the alchemy fire, Lin Yi began to stare at the screen of the tablet attentively. Because his spiritual sense was quite powerful, the alchemy curve on the tablet was quite smooth, with almost no extra twists and turns. Finally, after 1 hour and 21 minutes, the refining of the foundation establishment pill was completed. Without opening the lid of the cauldron, there was already a faint pill fragrance wafting out. This alchemy has ended. There are 5 pills, 2 of high quality and 3 of medium quality. The script has been found to have a slight adjustment. It will be automatically adjusted in the next alchemy. Lin Yi was slightly startled, then immediately smiled and said, Jingjing is really amazing. The automatic alchemy equipment nowadays is becoming more and more intelligent. The quality of the 5 foundation establishment pills could only be said to be average, so Lin Yi did not care. After putting them away, he put 3 sets of materials into the furnace and prepared to refine them a second time. Since the first time was not perfect, of course, he had to refine a few more times. When the script was perfect, he could refine other elixirs. In any case, Lin Yi did not have anything else, but he had the materials. The quality of the second foundation establishment pill was much better, and the time was reduced by about 3 minutes. However, there was still room for improvement, so Lin Yi did not stop and continued refining for the 3rd time. Finally, While reducing the time by another 2 minutes, he refined 5 top-grade, special-grade elixirs. Chapter 5775. Please wait a moment. Jing Jing is generating the refining script for Brother Lin Yi's Ji Nan. After Jing Jing's calculation, putting in 5 sets of materials at a time will get the greatest benefit, but it is best for the sea beast's Niden to be of 5 elements, so that after forming a cycle of 5 elements, the effect will be increased by 20%. If there are no 5 elements, you can only use the sea beast's Niden of a single element. Of course, the level of the sea beast's Niden can't be too different, otherwise it will affect the effect. Lin Yi was slightly stunned. It was the first time he heard that alchemy would have a cycle of 5 elements. Han Jingjing was too heaven-defying. She could even take such a factor into account. In fact, whether it was the Heaven Stage Island or the ancient small world, alchemists refined alchemy one set of materials at a time. No one put several materials into alchemy like Lin Yi. Even if there was such a method of 5 elements, no one could use it, so it was normal that he had never heard of it. In any case, this was a more powerful alchemy method. Lin Yi no longer hesitated. He immediately selected the 5 gold core stage sea beasts Niden and put them into the Shinong cauldron together with the auxiliary elixirs. To be honest, the other attributes of the sea beasts Niden were easy to get, but the fire attribute sea beasts Niden, Lin Yi really didn't have many. A fire attribute sea beasts Niden, it could be imagined how difficult it would be in the sea, so the 5 elements of the same gold core stage sea beasts Niden could be collected at most, which was the amount that could be refined 3 times. The Ji Nan alchemy script has been generated. According to the analysis of the material weight, there are 5 sets of alchemy materials of high quality. It is estimated that the alchemy time is 2 hours and 36 minutes. It is estimated that 7 elixirs can be obtained. Please prepare the spiritual awareness alchemy fire and maintain a continuous input state. The time it took to concoct the golden elixir was more than an hour longer than the foundation elixir, almost double the time. Of course, the amount of materials he put in was also double the amount, so he didn't find it strange at all. He focused on condensing his consciousness into the refinement fire. Fortunately, Lin Yi's spiritual sense was incomparably powerful. Otherwise, with such continuous alchemy, an ordinary alchemist would have already fainted. It could be said that he did not have any talent in alchemy, but in this aspect, he was blessed by heaven. 2.5 hours later, the refining of the first Ji Nan was completed. The number reported by the automatic alchemy system was 8 pills, 6 of which were special grade and 2 of which were superior grade. Not only was it one more than expected, but the quality was also excellent. Sure enough, refining with the 5 elements was different. Unfortunately, there were too few fire-attributed sea beasts. These 15 fire-attributed inner cores had been carefully found by Lin Yi. Fortunately, the inner cores of sea beasts of a single attribute could also be used. Although the medicinal effects would be slightly inferior, it was not a big problem. The Yuanying stage golden pill was not needed for the time being, so Lin Yi did not waste time to refine it. Before leaving, he still had to prepare some practical medicinal pills. As for the inner cores of the sea beasts of the profound ascending stage, because Lin Yi only had one, and there was no Xian Yandan in the small Jianghu, although he wanted to refine the Xian Yandan to improve Chen Dongqing's strength, he could only give up. There were too few sea beasts of the profound ascending stage in the small Jianghu. If he wanted to get the inner cores of the sea beasts of the profound ascending stage, he still needed to return to the heavenly island and think of a way. At that time, even if there was no Xian Yandan, with Han Jingjing's automatic alchemy system to deduce and analyze, he would definitely be able to refine it in the end. Lin Yi continuously refined for a day and a night. The medicinal pills were almost enough for the people in the secular world. He did not continue to refine. After all, spiritual awareness was different from true qi. Without the continuous support of the space in the jade pendant, he still needed to rest. The matter in the center was temporarily resolved. Lin Yi also had to return to the heavenly island. This time, he had stayed back for too long. To be honest, he was not at ease at the heavenly island. Fortunately, everything was fine so far. Opening the door, Lin Yi saw Languza sitting on the ground in front of his door. There were a lot of meat on the side. It seemed that he was guarding Lin Yi, which made him a little surprised. This time, he used the spiritual awareness pill fire. So Lin Yi did not release his spiritual awareness. He really did not know that Languza would be guarding here. Languza, what are you doing here? It was not easy to make Languza, who had always paid attention to his handsome image, sit on the ground like this. Of course, Lin Yi was just wondering why he did not get a chair to sit on. When Languza heard the sound of the door opening, he immediately swallowed the food in his mouth and then quickly stood up and said, "Boss, you came out! I was afraid that they would disturb you for no reason, so I helped you guard here." In fact, Lin Yi had already informed them in advance. Before he came out, unless there was a big matter, no one would disturb him. But this was also Languza's intention. He probably knew that Lin Yi was about to return to the heavenly island, so he was somewhat reluctant. "Languza, come in. I just happened to have something to talk to you about." Lin Yi smiled faintly and waved at Languza before turning around and going back. Languza hurriedly followed and did not forget to bring in the meat at the door. "Boss, what's the matter? Just tell me. Languza will definitely do it properly for boss." Languza immediately opened his mouth after he sat down. He seemed to have his own way of doing things. Lin Yi thought for a moment before saying, "Didn't I say before that I want you to stay in the secular world to protect the people here? Do you have any other ideas now? If you want to go back to the endless sea, it doesn't matter." Languza's face slightly darkened, and he sighed and said, "Boss, I want to follow you. I don't want to go back to the endless sea. If you can't take me to the heavenly island, I will stay here to protect my sisters-in-law. If it's the heavenly island, it's not impossible for you to go," Lin Yi said carefully. Although the jade space was his secret, Languza's temperament could be trusted. Since he had already considered this matter before, Lin Yi no longer hesitated. Languza was suddenly overjoyed. He couldn't help but lean forward and asked anxiously, "Really? Boss, can I really go with you? That's great. Qing is still very reliable. It's enough for him to stay here. I, Languza, will follow you to the heavenly island." Chapter 5776. Of course it's true, but this matter might be a bit dangerous, and you absolutely cannot reveal it. After arriving at Heavenly Island, you cannot say that you followed me there. You can only say that you were originally a sea dragon on Heavenly Island. Lin Yi believed that Languza wouldn't casually reveal the matter of the space in the jade pendant, but he still needed to be reminded. Languza also understood that Lin Yi wanted him to know some secrets. Don't be fooled by his carefree attitude, he was absolutely not a fool. He immediately said with a serious expression, "Boss, I understand. I'm not afraid of danger. As long as I can be with you, what is a trivial danger? As for what you said, I, Languza, will definitely remember it and absolutely won't reveal any information." In fact, even if Languza didn't say it, the people from the center would more or less be able to guess some of the truth. However, after arriving at Heavenly Island, Lin Yi could have Languza change his appearance a bit. Or he could have Han Jingjing research to see if there was a way to directly bring people to Heavenly Island. No matter what, as long as Languza went to Heavenly Island, there would always be an excuse. Moreover, Lin Yi's plan was to have Languza go to the sea to gain experience for a while and search for his own opportunities. This way, it might not attract the attention of the center. "All right, after Jing Jing comes out of seclusion, we'll prepare to return to Heavenly Island. At that time, I'll let you enter a space that's exclusive to me. No living people can enter, but spirit beasts can live inside. You're a sea dragon, so you belong to the category of spirit beasts, so I reckon you'll be able to enter. It's just that I'm not sure if you'll have a problem crossing the plain to Heavenly Island," Lin Yi said in a dignified tone. He really wasn't trying to scare Languza. That ghost couldn't wake up in the secular world, and Xiao Yazi couldn't appear on the Heaven Stage Island. Who knew if something would happen to Languza? Languza laughed and said, "Boss, don't worry. Languza, didn't die even after being captured by the Central and was rescued by you. This means that if I follow you, I will be accompanied by good luck. There won't be a problem. It's a deal." Linny thought about it and felt that it was true. If he had not saved Languza, his physical body would have already collapsed. Speaking of which, his luck was indeed not bad. "Boss, you don't have to worry about that. Let's see if you can let me enter your space first. If we can't get in, then everything will be in vain." Languza had made up his mind to follow Linny, so he was very concerned about whether or not he could enter the space that Linny was talking about like the spirit beasts. "That's right, then let's give it a try first." Linny originally had this idea. Since Languza took the initiative to mention it, then he would give it a try. As expected, although Languza was a sea dragon, he still belonged to the category of spirit beasts. There was no problem for him to enter the space of the jade pendant. As such, as long as he let Languza enter the space of the jade pendant before Linny left, then he would come out at Heaven Stage Island. Unfortunately, the space of the jade pendant couldn't carry people. Otherwise, he wouldn't have to run between the two ends if he could bring everyone into Heaven Stage Island. After discussing with Languza, while Han Jingjing was still studying the wormhole, Linny also began to bid farewell to the people in the secular world. When Han Jingjing came out, he could directly leave. Everyone knew that he was going back, so they basically put down everything at hand and stayed in the villa. Even Qingyi, who was far away in Europe, rushed back after her concert tour. However, before leaving, Linny suddenly remembered that Zhou Ruoming and Liang Ruoqing's wedding was not yet held. As the big matchmaker, he promised to host a wedding for them in Songzhon City. Before returning to Heaven Stage Island, he should still fulfill this promise. Since he thought of it, Linny didn't delay any longer. He directly took out his phone and dialed Zhou Ruoming's number. It only rang once before the other side picked up, as if Zhou Ruoming had been waiting for his call. "Boss Linny, you're back in Songzhon City?" Zhou Ruoming's surprised voice came through the phone, making Lin Yi's mood a lot better. He was indeed very happy to be able to achieve a good fate. "Yes, some things have been delayed for a bit. Is your wedding done? I need to make it up to you guys with a wedding gift." Of course, Linny wouldn't say something like, "Are you guys still waiting for me to host the wedding?" So he could only ask indirectly. Zhou Ruoming laughed. "Boss Linny, are you trying to kill me? Me and Ruoqing being able to have what we have today is all thanks to you. That was the best gift he could give her. As for the wedding, we've already done it once at Ruoqing's house, but Songzhon City has been waiting for you, Boss Linny. Without you hosting, we'd rather not have the wedding." Linny wasn't surprised when he heard this. He immediately nodded. "If that's the case, then tell me the date of the wedding. I've been quite busy recently, so I'll be leaving after attending your wedding." "Boss Linny, I know you're busy. If you're free today, then let's do it tonight," Zhou Ruoming said straightforwardly. Obviously, he had already prepared for this. "Everything's prepared for the wedding?" Linny was slightly startled. He also understood that Zhou Ruoming must have booked the wedding venue so that he could attend the wedding at any time. Although the money was nothing to Linny, it was probably not insignificant to the Zhou family. "That's right, the bride, the groom, and the venue are all prepared. We're just waiting for you to host the wedding," Zhou Ruoming said with a hearty smile. This wedding was completely prepared for Linny. As for the guests, the Zhou family didn't have many close friends, so it was very convenient to inform them. Moreover, in Zhou Ruoming's heart, his family and friends were not on the same level as Linny. At most, he would invite them again later. "All right, since you're ready, then I'll be there on time tonight. Where's the venue?" Linny said with a smile. Zhou Ruoming handled this matter very well. It was very important that it didn't take up too much of Lin Yi's time. "It's the number 1 private room of the Huangting Hotel. Should I go pick you up, boss? If you have any friends with you, they're welcome to come along." Zhou Ruoming thought of Languza. With him around, he must ask the hotel to prepare more meat. Chapter 5777. All right, since you said so, Linny boss, Roaching and I will be waiting for you and your friend at the wedding. Zhou Roming said respectfully, then said goodbye to Linny. After Linny hung up the phone, he said goodbye to Languza. He wasn't going to bring anyone else, but Languza had witnessed the story between Zhou Roming and Liang Ruoqing, so it wasn't a problem to bring him along. Besides, Languza's generosity was equivalent to 30 to 40 people, so he could represent everyone. Although Zhou Roming said he didn't need gifts, Linny couldn't really go to the wedding empty-handed. It was meaningless to give money. No matter how weak the Zhou family was, they didn't need money, not to mention they were going to be connected to the Liang family through marriage. After thinking for a while, Linny decided to use the spiritual herbs on the Heaven-class island to make 2 bone and marrow cleansing pills. He was going to give them as gifts. These pills were useless to him, but to ordinary people like Zhou Roming, it was very effective. It could prolong his life for 100 or 200 years. When it was almost time, Linny drove Languza to the Huangting Hotel. This hotel was one of the top hotels in Songzhan. Even if they didn't use the room, they still had to pay 200,000 to 300,000 yuan a day. Zhou Roming had spent a lot of money waiting for Linny. Linny was driving his old Jeep Cherokee today. When they arrived at the hotel, a doorman came to open the door respectfully. He didn't mind. He tipped the doorman and gave the car keys to the doorman to park the car. Then he led Languza into the hotel. Normally, if there were VIPs holding a wedding in a hotel, there would be an eye-catching sign at the door, so people could find the place quickly. However, Linny didn't see any sign for Zhou Roming and Liang Ruoqing's wedding. The number 1 private room was the best private room here. There was no reason for the hotel to be so careless. Linny frowned slightly. He released his divine sense and found a sign in a remote corner that had been stepped on. The white lily decorations on the sign were almost ruined. As for Zhou Roming and Liang Ruoqing's names, they were almost ruined too. Linny suddenly felt a little unhappy. This hotel was too inconsiderate. The handmade sign was ruined like this. Not only that, they didn't even put the sign on the LCD screen. Were they expressing their dissatisfaction with Zhou Roming and Liang Ruoqing? He continued to extend his divine sense, and the whole hotel appeared in his sea of consciousness. He easily saw that in the number 1 private room where Zhou Roming and Liang Ruoqing were, there was another group of people confronting with Zhou Roming. Boss, Zhou Roming seems to be in trouble. Why don't I go and kill all those people? Languza also swept out with his divine sense. When he found this situation, he was overjoyed. He didn't expect that he could not only have a big meal today, but also relax his muscles. Linny smiled slightly and said, "No need for you. These are all small fries. It's not worth our time to take action." After that, ignoring Languza's disappointed eyes, he took out his mobile phone and called Kang Xiaobo. Then he took Languza to the elevator. When they came to the number 1 private room, they could already hear the quarrel inside from the open door. Linny didn't rush in, so he listened outside with Languza. "Zhou Roming, Brother Qing said that you have to give up this place today. Don't think that you can go to heaven just because you married a woman from the Liang family. It's just a new aristocratic family. If you don't know what's good for you, believe it or not, your wife will become the wife of all our brothers tonight." A yellow-haired young man was shouting arrogantly inside. Zhou Roming almost rushed up and beat him, but Liang Ruoqing stopped him. "Today is my and Brother Ming's big day, so I don't want to argue with you. Leave immediately, otherwise even your Brother Qing won't have a good life." Liang Ruoqing's pretty face was cold, and she said in neither servile nor overbearing manner. After all, she was a girl from the Liang family, so her momentum was not inferior at all. "Yo, this chick is quite shrewish. Chick, what good life can you have with this poor guy? Follow us, I promise you will have a good life every day," another yellow-haired man said with a wretched smile. He had no respect for the new aristocratic family, the Liang family. "Ruoqing, don't talk nonsense with them. Today, I will destroy these small fries first." Zhou Roming's blood was boiling. After being humiliated like this, he might as well die. The leader of the group of hoodlums snorted. "Zhou Roming, Do you think Songhan is still the same as when the Zhou family was in power? Brother Qing gave you face by letting you use Supreme Number 1 for so long. Today, Brother Chung is going to use this place to invite a big shot, as well as celebrities from all over Songhan. If you know what's good for you, then leave, or don't blame us for being impolite. I think we should let his wife stay and be the main dish. Brother Qing will definitely like it. Another yellow-haired man laughed loudly. Liang Ruoqing ignored him and sneered. Your brother Chung is going to invite a big shot. Don't tell me it was only decided today. Celebrities from all over Songhan, it's already dark, and you want to steal our reserved room? Do you really think we are easy to bully? What a joke! This number 1 private room was originally reserved for our brother Qing. He can come whenever he wants. Did you guys decide on this? You guys have to give up the room you booked. If you keep being so long-winded, believe it or not, we brothers will gang rape you in front of your useless husband first. The yellow-haired man pointed at Liang Ruoqing arrogantly, his expression as if he couldn't wait for her to continue arguing. Lin Yi took a step forward, appearing in front of the blonde like a ghost. With a light slap, he sent the blonde flying out of the room, crashing into the wall and spitting out a mouthful of bloody teeth. His head tilted to the side, and he fainted on the spot. If Lin Yi didn't show mercy, this guy would have turned into a bloody mist and disappeared. Boss, why did you do it yourself? Let me do it! Languza quickly followed up and rolled up his sleeves, but seeing that Lin Yi didn't say anything, he could only put down his arm. This is Zhou Ruoming and Liang Ruoqing's wedding. Those who aren't invited can leave now. Lin Yi looked coldly at the group of hoodlums and said emotionlessly. Chapter 57-78. The hoodlums didn't know who Lin Yi was, but they were still intimidated by his aura. No one dared to speak. Who dares to tell my people to piss off? Is Songhan going to change? A young man stepped out of the elevator coldly, hearing Lin Yi's words. He smiled coldly as he walked in. Brother Chung! Master Chung! The gangsters greeted Lin Yi excitedly and respectfully as if they'd found their backbone. They looked at Lin Yi as if he was a dead man. Languza laughed at this idiot's pretentious face. Just what level is this guy in? He'll have to ask his boss later. It wasn't that this guy was too strong, it was that he was too weak. Languza wasn't very familiar with the levels below Foundation establishment. After all, there weren't any sea beasts this week. He really didn't know much. Lin Yi, of course, knew that a guy at the peak of the late phase of the Earth class was quite strong in Songhan. But to challenge him like that was a joke. My boss told you to piss off. Why aren't you guys piss off? Languza glared at him and turned to Lin Yi with a smile. Boss, they don't want to piss off. Do you want me to make them piss off one by one? When Languza said piss off, he really meant it. He thought it would be a good game, but Lin Yi didn't agree. Lin Yi looked at young Master Cheng indifferently and said without a trace of anger. Changing the world? Has Songhan ever changed? Master Cheng paused. He didn't quite understand what Lin Yi meant. Was he trying to stand up for House So? Let House So become the top power in Songhan again. Even if that was the case, wouldn't it still be a change? Lin Yi didn't want to pay attention to this ant-like character. He didn't even want to know who this guy was. The difference was too big. He didn't even have the mood to care. What Lin Yi meant was that the skies of Songhan would always be in his hands. It didn't matter if he was here or not, no matter who was jumping around below. As long as he wasn't dead, the skies wouldn't belong to anyone. This was Lin Yi's base in the common world. Who dared to say they controlled this place? They didn't even know how to write the word death. Master Cheng was hesitant. Lin Yi and Languza looked like normal people, but that follower that flew out wasn't something a normal person could do. He suspected that Lin Yi and Languza weren't so simple. Because of that, he didn't dare act rashly. You two, do you know who's in charge of Songhan, right? I, in Jianqing, may only be the second in command, but I'm a man of my words. If you let me have this place today, I'll owe you a favor. Otherwise, the aristocratic families behind us could easily crush a tiny Liang family. And Jianqing thought about it, and softened his attitude, but he still made a threat. "Get out!" Lin Yi didn't have any expression on his face. Which noble house in the common world dared to jump in front of him? He really wanted to see. But this guy's name sounded familiar. In Jianqing? What did he have to do with that idiot Jiang Wen? And Jianqing's face turned cold. He smiled coldly. "Don't be so shameless. Do you know who I've invited today? Not to mention in Songzhan, even in the whole of China, he's someone who can shake the world with a stomp of his feet. If you dare to delay this young master's business, don't even think about getting away with it. You scared me to death." Languza screamed as if he wanted the world to be in chaos. He smiled weirdly. "I have to stomp my foot and shake the world a few times a day. I don't even know when I accidentally let you out, you son of a turtle. You dare come here and scare me? Do you really think I'm scared?" Lin Yi was speechless. Languza used to be such a simple and honest sea dragon. How did he become like this all of a sudden? Even if society was a big dye vat, he didn't go to society at all. Plus, you're a sea dragon. If you're this son of a turtle's father, then isn't the relationship between families a little too complicated? You're courting death. And Jianqing didn't even say anything. His lackeys couldn't take it anymore. This was the best time to show their loyalty. No one wanted to be left behind. All of them rolled up their sleeves, ready to teach Languza a lesson. Languza got excited. This was the effect he wanted after wasting so much saliva. "Boss, please don't stop them." Unfortunately, before these guys could make a move, the elevator that opened again attracted their attention. A young girl with international brands came out. Her makeup was exquisite, and her hair was dyed light blonde. Although her face couldn't be seen clearly because of her large sunglasses, her aura was very strong. Behind her were 4 men and women. They seemed to be her assistant, makeup artist, fashion designer, and bodyguards. It was obvious that they were a team of celebrities. "Emily! It's Miss Emily!" The lackeys who were about to rush up turned around and saw this girl. They immediately changed their target and looked towards the elevator. If it wasn't for Jianqing, they would have rushed up and surrounded her. Languza looked at the girl named Emily bitterly. His heart was full of resentment. It wasn't easy for this bro to get into a fight. Why did this chick come out and cause trouble? Emily's frosty expression immediately turned radiant when she saw Jianqing. She took off her sunglasses, revealing her exquisite face and beautiful eyes. She walked over with a smile. "Young Master Qing, you're here so early. I'm sorry, am I late? I even said I wanted to familiarize myself with the venue and the environment. I'm really sorry. Young Master Qing, you're a magnanimous person. Please don't hold it against me." And Jianqing temporarily put aside Lin Yi and the others when he saw Emily. He revealed a smile that he thought was handsome. "Miss Emily, you're so dedicated. How could you be late? I also came early to see Miss Emily. After all, I'm your fan. It's my honor to be able to invite Miss Emily to sing here. Young Master Qing, you really know how to make people happy. You can call me whenever you want to listen to songs." Emily smiled seductively and winked at Jianqing. She was secretly pleased with herself. Chapter 57-79. Isn't young Master Qing going to treat some VIPs today? Why did it look like a wedding? Emily knew that if she was too enthusiastic, and Jianqing might not take her seriously. Fishing for a rich man was the same as fishing. She had to know when to stop, so she pretended to change the topic. And Jianqing sneered. "Some blind people are fighting with me for this place. Don't worry, Emily, this won't affect your performance." Emily turned to look at Lin Yi, her eyes brightening as well. She didn't know who he was, but the aura he exuded was very attractive, and in terms of looks, he was a lot better than in Jianqing. Unfortunately, there weren't many rich young masters that she didn't know. The one in front of her was obviously not on the list. Otherwise, she could have befriended him. Since he wasn't a rich young master, Emily wasn't interested in getting to know Lin Yi. She continued to size up the others, and it seemed that Lin Yi was the leader. She could only twist her slender waist as she walked in front of him, and raised her chin arrogantly. "You're the leader of these people, right? I'd advise you guys to leave before young Master Qing gets angry. Of course, I'll give each of you an autographed photo as compensation, and you can even take a photo with the bride and groom as a blessing. What do you think?" Emily said, as if she was giving them charity, as if they were the ones who'd taken advantage of her. Lin Yi frowned. "Who are you? If Zhou Ruoming didn't invite you, then get lost." The arrogant Emily was petrified. This bastard actually asked me who I am? Doesn't he know that I, Emily, am a first-rate celebrity in the country? Although I'm still far from being a first-rate celebrity and can't be compared to those kings and queens, there aren't many people in the country who don't know me. Languza came over and whispered, "Boss, what's the use of this silly woman's autographed photo? Is it for wiping your ass?" Lin Yi couldn't help but smile. This guy is getting more and more evil, but I like it. Ai Emily's pretty face instantly flushed red. She clenched her fists tightly. The anger in her heart was almost unbearable. Foolish woman? Using an autographed photo to wipe his ass? This bastard was going too far. Emily had never experienced such humiliation ever since she became famous. For a moment, she didn't know how to react. Although Jianqing found Languza's words funny, now was the time for him to show off. He took a step forward and shielded Emily behind him. He pointed at Languza angrily and said, "Good boy. If you have the guts, say it again and see how this young master takes care of you." Languza was overjoyed. There was actually such a good thing. He could beat people up after scolding them. This was simply too awesome. "Boss, what's the use of this stupid woman's autograph? Is it for wiping your butt?" Languza repeated loudly. Then, he looked at Jianqing with anticipation. He thought to himself, "Hurry up and do it. Hurry up. Otherwise, boss will stop me from beating you up again." Ai Mili was about to go crazy. A big shot like her had been called a stupid woman to her face. Not only did he use her autographed photo to wipe his ass, he even said it twice in a row. 2 times. And Jianqing's eyes turned cold. He swung his hand at Languza's handsome face. Lin Yi naturally wouldn't stop him if he wanted to court death. Languza had been looking forward to this for a long time, and he couldn't wait for Jianqing to act faster. Unfortunately, just as Jianqing raised his hand, the elevator doors opened again. The general manager of the Imperial Court Hotel rushed out and shouted, "Young Master Qing, calm down. I'll definitely get this done." This time, it was Languza's turn to go crazy. This damn elevator was too much of a hindrance. Shouldn't he go and dismantle this thing first? There were a total of 4 elevators on the left and right, so it was something that could be easily dismantled. And Jianqing retracted his hand. To be honest, he was also forced into a corner just now. If he didn't do something, he wouldn't be able to show his face in public in the future. However, if he really had to deal with Lin Yi and Languza himself, he still wasn't confident. If it wasn't for this, with his style of doing things, he would have already asked someone to hack these guys to death when he arrived. Why would he talk nonsense with them for so long? The general manager of the hotel wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and rushed over to Zhou Ruoming. He said, "Mr. Zhou, our Imperial Court Hotel has been booked today, so we'll have to ask you to change the venue for your wedding. If you need, we can help you contact other hotels. What do you think?" When Zhou Ruoming saw Lin Yi, he had already made up his mind and left everything to Lin Yi to handle. However, now that they were talking to him directly, he naturally had to come out and reply. "Is this how your hotel does business? The reservation fee for the Supreme No. 1 private room is 250,000 yuan a day. You should know when I start and when I end the reservation, right? When I didn't use it, you gave the private room to someone else, and I didn't ask for the fee back. Now that I want to use it, you give me the same treatment? Do you really think that I, Zhou Ruoming, can be bullied at will?" Zhou Ruoming was also very unhappy. It was okay that Jianqing looked down on the Zhou family, but how dare a general manager of the Imperial Court Hotel play tricks on him? The sweat on the general manager's forehead increased. He didn't mention the refund on purpose just now because he wanted to fish in troubled waters. He hoped that Zhou Ruoming wouldn't mention it under the pressure of Jianqing. As Zhou Ruoming had said, he had given the supreme number 1 to someone else and cheated Zhou Ruoming of the reservation fee. Now, even if he wanted to refund it, he couldn't. Mr. Zhou, I can refund the fee for today. Although you had a reservation, the entire Imperial Court Hotel has been booked by Lord Qing, so your reservation has to be invalid. We can't do anything about it. I hope you can understand. The general manager gritted his teeth. It was fine to refund the fee for today, but it was impossible for him to get the previous one back. Lin Yi raised his hand to stop Zhou Ruoming from talking. He looked at the general manager coldly. If your Imperial Court Hotel is going to do business like this, then there's no need for it to continue. The general manager was shocked. He felt a chill in his heart, but he still braced himself and said, Are you kidding me? Who do you think you are? How dare you criticize the management of the Imperial Court Hotel? Leave now. We don't welcome you. Please leave now. Chapter 5780. Originally, Lin Yi wanted to throw him out himself, but seeing how eager Languza was, he couldn't bear to continue pressuring him, so he let him do it. All right. Boss, just wait and see. Don't worry when I, Languza, do it. Before he could finish his sentence, Languza had already grabbed the general manager's tie like a chicken and lifted him up. After thinking for a while, he asked, Boss, should I throw him out the window or the door? That fellow's face was pale with fear. After being grabbed by Languza, he could not move at all. He could not even speak. He could not even beg for mercy even if he wanted to, let alone anything else. If he was really thrown out of the window by Languza, it would be good if he was left with a pile of minced meat after falling from such a high floor. Throw him out the door! Lin Yi waved his hand casually. It was fine to kill a small fry like this, but he didn't want to kill easily, so he showed mercy again. Oh, Languza said. He estimated the strength in his hand, then lightly threw the general manager out. With a whoosh, the general manager flew out and crashed into the door of an elevator, collapsing the alloy door. However, the guy was fine. Languza's strength was transmitted to the elevator door, so his body didn't suffer much. Nice! I destroyed one! Languza secretly gave himself a thumbs up. Of course, he did it on purpose to destroy an elevator that was always in his way. Unfortunately, there were still 3 elevators left. Languza was already looking at Jianqing, an AI melee with evil intentions. As for not hitting women, sorry, in the eyes of the aquatic dragon, humans were humans. There was no difference between men and women. And Jianqing looked at Languza with fear. He was glad that he didn't make a move just now. Otherwise, he would definitely be in trouble. This blue-blonde guy was quite strong. Although he couldn't tell his specific level, he was definitely not weaker than in Jianqing. Emily didn't know the severity of the situation. Although the hotel's general manager had caused the elevator door to collapse, in her opinion, it was only because the material of the elevator door wasn't good. Otherwise, the general manager wouldn't have been able to stand up and run away so quickly. This is too presumptuous. Young Master Qing, who are they? How dare they be so arrogant? Do you want me to find someone to deal with them? With my reputation, I don't believe that I can't find someone who can deal with them. Emily gritted her teeth and said, not forgetting to show off her wide network of friends. Before Jianqing could speak, more people came out of the elevator. This time, it was 2 big bosses in the business world. Sensing that the atmosphere wasn't right, they turned around and wanted to leave. However, Jianqing had already noticed them. If they left now, they would most likely offend Jianqing. Young Master Qing and Miss Emily, what's going on? One of them saw that he couldn't leave, so he directly greeted Jianqing. The other was also a smart person. He immediately greeted Jianqing. No matter what, they couldn't afford to offend Jianqing. As for the group that was confronting Jianqing, they wouldn't easily get involved before they understood the situation. And Jianqing only nodded. He wasn't even interested in saying anything. These two were considered decent people in the business world, but in today's guest list, they were only small characters at the bottom. The two elites of the business world were a little embarrassed, but they didn't dare to express their dissatisfaction. They could only stand at the side and pretend to look at the decorations around them. At this time, the other two elevators opened one after another. A few more groups of people came in. They were all young people, and they seemed to know each other. As they came out, they laughed and chatted with each other. "Brother Qing, you're here so early! Are you here to see Miss Emily?" The young man in front laughed and waved at Jianqing. And Jianqing finally smiled and said, "You're all here, and in a group. Are you afraid that people won't know that you're the 5 little dragons of the new aristocratic families?" "Ha! What 5 little dragons? With a big dragon like you, Brother Chang, what are we 5 little dragons?" Another man with a strong body laughed and said, "These two groups of people were led by the 5 second generation of the new aristocratic families. The rest were all their followers. They often hung out together, so they were very familiar with each other." "Hey, isn't that Liang Ruoqing from the Liang family? She's getting married here today?" One of them who knew Liang Ruoqing said with some surprise. After all, they were all from the new aristocratic families, so they would more or less have some interactions. "Brother Cheng, didn't you book this place for young Master Han? Why is someone from the Liang family holding a wedding here?" The well-built man from before asked in a low voice. And Jianqing's face darkened again. He snorted and said, "I and Jianqing don't have enough face. They snatched the number 1 private room and refused to give it up. This is simply preposterous." The 5 little dragons immediately exploded. They stepped forward with righteous indignation and said, "Liang Ruoqing, even your father, Liang Bufan, has to be careful when he sees Brother Cheng, let alone a little girl like you. Let us give you a piece of advice. Hurry up and leave. Otherwise, when young Master Han arrives, it will be even more embarrassing for you." Liang Ruoqing's face was a little pale. Although she knew Lin Yi's strength, she was not facing a new aristocratic family, but an alliance of new aristocratic families. She didn't care about it herself, but Liang family was there after all. She didn't want to bring trouble to her family, and that wasn't the result she wanted. Lin Yi smiled faintly and said, "Where did these 5 little worms come from? They're really annoying." "That's right. Boss, do you want me to throw them out as well? This kind of trash actually dared to call himself a dragon. I'm dying of laughter." Lenguza revealed a very creepy smile. He clenched his fist and was about to make a move. "Even I, a flood dragon, don't dare to call myself a dragon. How dare you weaklings call yourselves the 5 little dragons in front of me? This is simply an insult to the dragon clan. Brother Chen, where did these 2 idiots come from? How dare they act tough in front of us brothers? Even if young Master Han comes, he will have to give us some face. Who the hell are these 2? Why don't we cripple this brat first?" The 5 little dragons who had been quiet all this while suddenly exploded. It seemed like they liked to scold people. Chapter 5781. If Lin Yi didn't want Lenguza to make a move, he could naturally stop him. Since he didn't stop him, it meant that he didn't mind him making a move. Lin Yi smiled. "Don't hold back if you can't." A bunch of clowns, other than wasting time, there was no other use. Lin Yi didn't want to beat around the bush with them anymore. Lenguza was overjoyed. He knew that Lin Yi agreed for him to make a move. But at this time, people came out from the damn elevator again. Lenguza swore that when he left, he would definitely tear these elevators apart. But when he saw that it was Kang Xiaobo and Lai Changyi, Lenguza calmed down. He couldn't be angry at his own people, right? "Boss, we're here!" Kang Xiaobo and Lai Changyi walked over neatly and bowed respectfully to greet Lin Yi. Lin Yi found it funny. These 2 brats did it on purpose, right? They didn't usually have this kind of attitude. At his level, did he still need to act like this? Miracle Dr. Guan Medical Group's Kong Xiaobo and Lai Changyi are here to congratulate Mr. Zhou Ruoming and Ms. Liang Ruoqing for getting married." The hotel arranged for the greeter to hide outside the door and watch the show. But when he saw these two coming personally with gifts and even taking the initiative to greet Lin Yi, he didn't dare to be slow. He immediately raised his head and announced his name. A small figure like him might not be able to come into contact with the 5 little dragons of the noble houses, but the 2 co-directors of Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company. As long as one stayed in Songhan, he or she would know about them. They were the big shots that could shake Songhan with just the stomp of their feet. And Jianqing's expression changed. In Songhan, there was no one who didn't know about Kong Xiaobo and Lai Changyi. And the person behind him had reminded him again and again that he could offend anyone but the Miracle Dr. Guan Medical Group. Otherwise, no one could save him. He didn't expect these two to come personally. He never heard of Zhou Ruoming interacting with them before. Wait, Kong Xiaobo and Lai Changyi called that pretentious brat boss. And Jianqing suddenly realized that he had overlooked too many things. At this moment, there was even some fear in his eyes. "Zhou Ruoming, why didn't you inform us that you're getting married? We're schoolmates after all." Kong Xiaobo received Lin Yi's call and came to support Zhou Ruoming. So after greeting Lin Yi, he went over to hug Zhou Ruoming enthusiastically. Ruoming, naturally, knew that the two had come for Lin Yi's sake, but he was still very happy. And Jianqing's people were coming in waves, and Ruoming's side was getting weaker and weaker. Even if Lin Yi could take on all of them, it still wasn't enough. Now with these 2 underlings of Lin Yi, the atmosphere was completely different. The guy who was slapped by Languzi didn't suffer any serious injuries. At this moment, he walked over with his teeth bared and roared at his underlings. "Are you all dead? Don't you have any reaction when you see this young master being hit?" Before he could finish speaking, Languzi's figure flashed, and he had already appeared in the middle of his followers like a ghost. In the blink of an eye, these fellows had all been knocked down by him. Moreover, he had piled them up like a human pyramid. "Now it's much more spacious." Languzi clapped his hands in satisfaction. Then he suddenly thought of something and asked the guy, "By the way, how do you want them to react? I'll help you see if they can still do it." And Jianqing and his underlings were completely dumbfounded. At first, they thought that Languzi was quite strong, but they didn't experience it firsthand. Now, they finally understood that this wasn't someone they could fight against. No matter how powerful they were, in front of this kind of strength, they were nothing. Plus, and Jianqing already knew about Lin Yi's identity. The one behind him had warned him before, and now that they were facing each other directly, he didn't know what to do. The 2 people who came after made and Jianqing completely confirm Lin Yi's identity. The 2 superstars of China, absolute empress level, Su Shihan and Qingyi. When the 2 beauties walked out of the elevator, the 5 little dragons on Jiang Wen's side all shrunk their heads and willingly turned into little insects. They couldn't help it. These 2 might be superstars to ordinary people, but as young masters of noble houses, if they didn't know their real identities, they would have died 100 times already. Emily saw Su Shihan and Qingyi and quickly went up and nodded with a face full of smiles. "Shihan sis, sis." Su Shihan nodded with a smile, but Qingyi said coldly, "Who are you?" Emily's face instantly turned red. She was, after all, an A-list celebrity, yet Qingyi asked her who she was? This was too much of a slap to her face. The problem was that she didn't dare to get angry. At first her celebrity might sound powerful, but compared to a superstar like Qingyi, an international empress, there was no comparison at all. Not to mention Qingyi's terrifying background, just the disparity in status between the 2 of them was enough. As long as Qingyi said that she wanted to ban Emily, an A-list celebrity like her would immediately fade into the crowd. It was guaranteed that there would not be any ripples. "Sis, I'm Emily. We met at this year's China Golden Melody Awards." Emily was going crazy, but she had to smile and talk. "I don't remember," Qingyi said straightforwardly. Then she pulled her to the side. If it was another occasion, Qingyi might communicate with her. After all, they were in the same circle. It wasn't a bad thing to help the younger generation. But since Emily was here to fight against Lin Yi, Qingyi was already giving her a lot of face by not beating her up. There was no way Qingyi was going to be nice to her. Lin Yi, why didn't you call us when you came to attend your friend's wedding? Sister Shirhan and I prepared a song to congratulate the newlyweds. This must be the bride and groom, right? They are indeed a perfect match. Qingyi's expression had changed completely as she walked towards Lin Yi. That smile on her face made Emily's teeth itch even more. When Zhou Ruoming heard Qingyi's praise, he couldn't help but blush. Liang Ruoqing was a beautiful woman. As for being a perfect match, to a 10,000-year repeat student like him, wasn't that insulting? Emily remembered how arrogant she'd been in front of Lin Yi before, thinking that he was just a pretty boy. Her intestines turned green with regret. This bastard was so damn annoying. He was so powerful, but he pretended to be a loser. Would he die if he didn't act cool? Ah? Chapter 5782. If Lin Yi knew what she was thinking, he'd be speechless. He was a natural tall, rich, and handsome man. When had he ever pretended to be a loser? When Sun Jingyi came over, and Jianqing was already numb. Since he was sure that it was Lin Yi, then he should be thinking about how to keep his life, and not fight for that damned Supreme Room 1. The 5 dragons didn't know who Lin Yi was, but there was no way they wouldn't know Sun Jingyi. She was the leader of a noble house that was even higher than theirs. Wouldn't they be looking for death if they didn't know her? Yet, this powerful woman was the same as the 2 superstars, Su Shirhan and Qingyi, walking to Lin Yi with a smile on her face. She didn't even glance at them, only talking to Lin Yi and congratulating the bride and groom. What put them in a difficult position was that the ones following behind Sun Jingyi were the legendary Hidden House Yu Bing, Hidden House Zhuang Niaoqiang, and Hidden House Pai's Pai Zhihai. They didn't dare to look at them anymore, and just kneeled on the ground with their followers, waiting for their punishment. Lin Yi didn't have time to care about them, and told Zhou Ruoming to get everyone to sit down, so that they wouldn't block the door. All the famous people that Jianqing had invited, other than the 5 dragons, immediately became guests of Zhou Ruoming's wedding after seeing this situation. It was impossible for someone to get to this level without good eyesight. And Jianqing stood in front of the 5 dragons with a dazed look. Because they were all kneeling, he stood out. Lin Yi was still there, and he didn't dare to sneak away. When the elevator opened again, and Jianqing's eyes finally lit up when he saw who it was, he quickly greeted. Master Han! You're here! Young Master Han was the big shot that Jianqing was going to invite to the banquet today. However, after knowing Lin Yi's identity, he knew that he was an idiot. Now, his only hope was that young Master Han could put in a good word for him so that he wouldn't be killed by Lin Yi. Lin Yi's eyes flashed. He didn't think that the young Master Han Jianqing mentioned was Han Xiaopa. This brat came to Songhan to see Lin Yi, but why was he with Jianqing? Boss! Han Xiaopa ignored Jianqing and walked up to Lin Yi with a guilty look on his face. Obviously, he had heard what happened here. Lin Yi had only told Kang Xiaobo to find some powerful people to support Zhou Ruoming, so that he could live a more comfortable life in Songzhan. He didn't think that this brat would find all the noble houses in Songzhan, and naturally, Han Xiaopa was on the list that Kang Xiaobo notified. Han Xiaopa, it seems like you're doing quite well now, Lin Yi said faintly, still feeling a little uncomfortable. And Jianqing knew that this was related to Jiang Wen. There was no way that Han Xiaopa didn't know that Lin Yi and Jiang Wen were enemies. Jiang Wen was one of the main leaders of this incident, too. If Han Xiaopa and Jianqing had a good deal, Lin Yi would definitely have some thoughts about it. Boss, let me explain. Han Xiaopa shook his head with a bitter smile and said sincerely. Boss, House Han is where we are today because of you, boss. If it weren't for you, House Han would have been taken over by the other hidden houses a long time ago. No matter what, Xiaopa would never do anything that would betray you, boss. Please believe me on this, boss. Lin Yi didn't say anything, but he felt much calmer inside. If Han Xiaopa really wanted to work with Jiang Wen in the center, he would only be disappointed. House Han alone wasn't enough to change the situation, but for his follower, Han Xiaopa, Lin Yi really didn't want him to go down the wrong path. Since Han Xiaopa had something to say, Lin Yi would listen to him. Boss, this Jianqing has a lot of rare treasures in his hands. You can't find anything better than what he has, so if this new house wants to establish itself in Songhan, I have to give them some face. After all, only the An Central Group has those treasures. Of course, I've also warned him not to touch anyone related to Boss, or I'll be the first to deal with him. Han Xiaopa explained simply and logically, and Lin Yi understood what he meant. This An Central Group was built by Jiang Wen using the center's resources, and Jianqing was his spokesperson. This guy really was like a ghost that wouldn't go away, running into him wherever he went. But Lin Yi didn't find it strange. After all, the center's second base was in the outskirts of Songzhan, and it was normal for the An Central Group to use Songzhan as a base. With the wormhole, the center could send technology from the common world to Sky Class Island, leading a technological revolution. Of course, they could also send things from Sky Class Island to the common world. Even some broken herbs were top-notch treasures in the common world, and this was a monopoly. Jiang Wen wouldn't be Jiang Wen if he didn't take advantage of this opportunity to get rich. Lin Yi nodded. I understand, I'll let it go this time. Be careful when you interact with the people from the center in the future. This isn't something you should be doing. I understand, boss, I'll be careful in the future. Han Xiaopa sighed in relief and bowed. Compared to Lin Yi, nothing else mattered. No matter how many treasures the An Central Group had, Han Xiaopa wouldn't work with them anymore. Luckily, he wasn't too involved this time, or it'd be hard for him to get out of this. Lin Yi looked at Jianqing faintly. Did you send a message to Jiang Wen? When is he coming? And Jianqing was startled. He thought that he'd done it discreetly enough, but Lin Yi still found him. Lin Yi, since you know that when bro is coming, you should restrain yourself a little. Don't think that I'm afraid of you. And Jianqing didn't bother hiding anymore since he was found out. He roared in a low voice. When Jiang Wen mentioned Lin Yi to him, he did warn him not to mess with Lin Yi, but when it came to him and Lin Yi, he naturally wouldn't say that he was afraid of Lin Yi. The result of this was that Jianqing thought that his Wenbro was afraid of Lin Yi, but in reality, he had Lin Yi in his hands. Because of this, he didn't hesitate to call Jiang Wen for help when Han Xiaopa completely gave up on him. Chapter 5783. Lin Yi frowned slightly and flicked 2 strands of pure energy at Jianqing's knees, forcing him to kneel with the 5 dragons. You talk too much. Kneel first and let Jiang Wen come and get them, Lin Yi said faintly before turning to Han Xiaopa. Xiaopa, you go in and sit first. We'll talk later. Boss, aren't you going in? Why don't I stay here with you? It's rare for me to see you, boss, so it'll be good to talk more, Han Xiaopa said with a smile. Lin Yi didn't blame him, which made him relax and feel better. Lin Yi shrugged. Forget it then. Let's go in and sit together. I wanted to wait for Jiang Wen to come so he wouldn't ruin the atmosphere, but this guy isn't worth it. Let's go in first. Languza had wanted to go in and eat for a long time. These guys were all soft-footed shrimps, begging for mercy on the ground. Since they couldn't fight, of course they had to eat as much as they could. But before going in, he didn't forget to threaten them with a glare. Kneel properly. If anyone dares to walk away, I'll destroy your entire family. This was, of course, just a casual remark. Even if Languza wanted to do so, Lin Yi wouldn't allow him to do so. But the 5 dragons didn't know that. Seeing how fierce Languza was, they immediately nodded, indicating that they wouldn't leave. Languza nodded in satisfaction and followed behind Lin Yi. Then, he realized that he couldn't keep up with Lin Yi anymore. The moment he entered, Lin Yi was like the moon surrounded by stars. Many people wanted to get to know Lin Yi, and if he didn't use some pure energy, he couldn't separate them at all. Lin Yi brushed them off twice and got impatient. He released his pure energy to block the people outside and walked in on his own. Hey, this guy is quite fast, Lin Yi said to himself as he walked in. He turned around and walked out. His soul had already sensed that Jiang Wen had arrived at the hotel's rooftop. With the speed of the flying saucer, it wasn't strange for him to arrive so quickly. "Ah Cheng, why are you kneeling here? Who's King tired of living, daring to touch our clan's people?" And Jiang Wen was enraged when he saw Jianqing kneeling on the ground. With a wave of his hand, the 10 biohumans behind him blocked the entrance of the room. Without waiting for Jianqing to speak, Lin Yi leisurely walked out and lightly said, "I'm the one who touched your family. What are you going to do about it?" Jiang Wen shuddered. Lin Yi's voice was like a nightmare to him. The center had just signed a truce with Lin Yi, but that didn't guarantee that Lin Yi wouldn't kill him. "Lin Yi, you're King tired of living. How dare you touch our clan's people?" Jiang Wen roared suddenly and raised his leg to kick in Jianqing's face. He yelled even louder, "If you want to King hit him, then hit him seriously. What's the point of making him kneel? Do it like this, understand? Don't give me face in the future. You can just kill a bastard like him." The 5 dragons behind Jianqing almost fainted when they saw Jiang Wen kicking and punching Jianqing. What the hell was with this line? Weren't you Jianqing's brother? Lin Yi was speechless. So making Jianqing kneel was giving you face? He'd finally seen what it meant to be a despicable person. Alright, stop acting here. Tell me why you're here, okay? You're not here to beat up your brother, are you? Lin Yi looked at Jiang Wen with a smile that wasn't a smile on his face. They just signed an agreement, but it wouldn't be bad to beat him up if he had the chance. Jiang Wen glanced at the room and said decisively, "Isn't there a wedding here? I'm here to give the gift." Yes, I'm here to give the gift. Beating this kid up is just a convenience. Gift? That's not bad. You're considerate. I wonder how much money you're giving? Lin Yi smiled faintly as he looked at Jiang Wen meaningfully. Jiang Wen smiled dryly. "I came out in a hurry, so I didn't bring much cash. I'm just here to show my sincerity. 100 million, right? It's a little, but I can't really look down on the groom's behalf. I'll reluctantly accept it for him." Lin Yi's lips twitched as he reached out his hand and hooked his finger at Jiang Wen, signaling him to hurry up and hand over the money. Jiang Wen almost coughed up blood. He only wanted to give 1 million, alright? 100 million was a little? Not feeling down on the groom's behalf? And reluctantly accepted it? Do you think I'm a sucker? If saliva could drown Lin Yi, Jiang Wen would have spat it all over his face. Unfortunately, Jiang Wen, who was used to being extorted, didn't even have the courage to think about bargaining with Lin Yi. He was afraid that 100 million would turn into 1 billion, and that'd be a huge loss. "Give me your account number, I'll transfer the money." Jiang Wen held his breath. He'd already given Zhou Ruoming's father-in-law a huge sum of money, so he didn't mind giving Zhou Ruoming some more. He just treated as pity for Zhou Ruoming and Liang Ruoqing, taking care of their dowry and betrothal gifts. Languza, who was eating his steak, got close to Lin Yi and said, "Boss, this guy must have earned a lot of dirty money. He should have asked for more." Jiang Wen really wanted to choke Languza to death. This bastard couldn't even eat properly. What the hell was he talking about? Lin Yi knew that Jiang Wen must have earned a lot of money from those useless herbs on Sky Class Island, and he could easily sell them for a few 100,000. But he knew when to stop and didn't continue squeezing Jiang Wen dry. There'd be chances in the future, after all. Lin Yi really did have Zhou Ruoming's account number. He didn't know why he'd brought it last time, but he could use it now. Jiang Wen didn't want to stay any longer. He transferred the money and prepared to leave with Jianqing. Lin Yi smiled. "Jiang Wen, you came with the gifts. Why didn't Lao Long and Shui Jianfeng come? Don't tell me your title of Commander-in-Chief is just an empty title? Your subordinates don't even know how to follow you. Lin Yi, that's enough." Jiang Wen was on the verge of crying. Wasn't he the one paying for the 2 guys? Lin Yi said expressionlessly. "What do you mean that's enough? You better give me an explanation today, or you won't be leaving." Jiang Wen wanted to slap himself on the face. What the hell was he talking about? What the hell was he talking about? Chapter 5784. Letting the two of them bleed a little was better than losing Jiang Wen's alone. It was better to have everyone happy than to be happy alone. After thinking it through, Jiang Wen didn't wait for Lin Yi to rush him. He took out his phone and called Zhao Long and Shui Jianfeng. He didn't say anything else but just told them to come to the Imperial Hotel's room 1. He had something important to discuss. And Jianqing really wanted to die when he saw this. It was one thing to get punched and kicked by Jiang Wen, but the person he relied on the most was gone. It was as if the sky was falling down on him. After a while, Zhao Long and Shui Jianfeng really did come over like idiots. Before Lin Yi even said anything, Jiang Wen said that he'd come with 100 million and it was up to them. What else could they do with Lin Yi here? They could only pinch their noses and accept the gift. After sending them away, Lin Yi didn't want to waste any more time. He went on stage and clapped his hands. All right, today is Mr. Zhou Ruoming and Miss Liang Ruoqing's wedding. Most of the relatives and friends are here. I'm Lin Yi, the host of the wedding. I actually don't know what a host is for, because I've never been married before. Kind laughter came from the audience. Who didn't know who Lin Yi was? To be able to see him officiate a wedding, it was a worthwhile trip. Lin Yi's forehead was starting to sweat. What the hell was this wedding officiator? It was even more tiring than fighting with the giants of the opening period. Speaking of which, didn't that guy have a sense of humor at all? Wasn't it a little too stiff? God knew that Lin Yi had never thought about something like this in his entire life. He swore to himself that he'd never be a goddamn wedding host ever again. In actuality, Zhou Ruoming had hired a professional host. Lin Yi didn't need to go on stage to steal his job, but since he was already there, Zhou Ruoming wouldn't be stupid enough to let him come down. He could only continue to be a host. Fortunately, Lin Yi reluctantly carried on with the wedding. To Zhou Ruoming and Liang Ruoqing, this wasn't important. What was important was that Lin Yi really treated them as friends. Otherwise, with Lin Yi's status, why would he do something like this? Moreover, he had invited so many prominent people to support him. Zhou Ruoming wouldn't believe that they came because of the Zhou family. Even when the Zhou family was at its peak, they were nothing in the eyes of these people, let alone now. But after today, perhaps the Zhou family would rise again. Lin Yi had arranged such a big event. Even if the brothers Zhou Ruoming and Zhou Ruoguang didn't want to control the underground world of Songzhan, they would definitely become a powerful family. When countless fireworks rose from the rooftop of the Huangting Hotel, this simple but grand wedding was officially over. Lin Yi, who had fulfilled his promise, could go back in peace. 2 days later, Han Jingjing finally organized the information about the wormhole. She had a general idea of it. Lin Yi Gidge, I think I understand now. The research on the wormhole isn't progressing much. The known method of teleportation is to convert the structure of an object into data, then disassemble the object into its smallest particles and teleport it to the other side of the wormhole. Then, according to the data of the structure, the object can be perfectly reconstructed and restored to its original form. Unfortunately, the research center has only found this method so far. It's impossible to teleport a living body. Lin Yi also thought it was a pity. If they could teleport a living body, then they wouldn't need to project their primordial spirit. They could teleport directly, and the people in the secular world could also enter Heavenly Island through the wormhole. But Lin Yi didn't dwell on this too much. It was already amazing enough that they could teleport objects. At least they wouldn't have to worry about communication in the future. At the same time, Lin Yi also understood why the center clearly had the ability to connect the two planes, but there were no people coming and going. There were only a few people in the secular world, and they could only endure when Lin Yi came to bully them. Otherwise, the reinforcements from Heavenly Island would have arrived long ago. Lin Yi Gidge, I reckon that this wormhole was discovered by the people from the center on Heavenly Island, and it was only discovered before the rise of the Central Chamber of Commerce. Otherwise, it would be impossible for a large number of things from the secular world to appear during that period of time. The secular world didn't have any powerful methods to improve their cultivation before, and they only recently cultivated experts. Han Jingjing speculated, but it was already very close to the truth. Since you know the situation of this wormhole, let's go back first. I've been away from Heavenly Island for too long, it's time to go back. Linny was really eager to go back. In the past, there had been all kinds of things that had been dragged on, and it was already time for him to settle them. Han Jingjing agreed. At this stage, the wormhole was just a useless thing. It didn't have much meaning if it couldn't teleport living things. However, it was better to make use of it when she could. Han Jingjing had already prepared a purchase list. She would find someone to send it to Big Brother Duffin later and ask him to help her teleport the things to Heavenly Island. Most of the things on this list were things that Han Jingjing needed, including all kinds of specialized electronic equipment and components, so that she could continue her research on the Heaven Step Island. The other half were all kinds of food and technological products from the secular world. These were gifts for people. Things from the secular world were very popular on the Heaven Step Island. With these latest models, Han Jingjing could make more and more powerful equipment, and it would be more efficient to study the wormhole. If there was anything she lacked, she could directly ask Big Brother Duffing to continue to help her purchase it. This way, with the support of an endless supply of materials, Han Jingjing could do anything with half the effort. She would no longer have to worry about the lack of technological materials. Well, there's no need to say goodbye. I've said enough in the past 2 days, Linny said to the people gathered in the villa with a smile. Linny had already given them the cultivation resources that should be given to them, whether it was medicinal pills, spirit jades, or star ink milk. Perhaps when he came back next time, the people here would already be in the gold core stage. As for the nascent soul stage and the gold core, they wouldn't need it. Linny, how long will it take for you to come back this time? Sun Jingyi asked with some reluctance. Although the two had said goodbye in private, when Linny really left, she still couldn't let go. Chapter 5785. Linny smiled faintly. I'll definitely come back within a year. If I can find that cheat master of mine, Zhang Liju, I might be able to come back even earlier. A year, of course, referred to the agreement with the center. At this time, everyone was actually blaming Lan Xiaoru in their hearts. Why couldn't she set a shorter time for the agreement, like signing it once a month or something like that? If Lin Yi knew what they were thinking, he wouldn't know whether to laugh or cry. He definitely wouldn't sign a 1-month agreement. If he had the time, he might as well just go against them. Boss, I'll definitely protect my brothers and sisters-in-law. Even if I have to sacrifice my life, I won't let anything happen to them. Don't worry, boss. Chen Dongqing patted his chest and said loudly. Originally, he had always called Lin Yi Grand Master, but this way, everyone in the common world would be at the same level as his Grand Master. This seniority was too pitiful, so Lin Yi just let him call him Grand Master like Languza. Chen Dongqing, of course, was overjoyed. Although he was older than the others, going from the grandson generation to the younger brother generation was nothing to be unhappy about. Calling them brothers and sisters-in-law was no problem at all. Lin Yi nodded to Chen Dongqing. You'll have to worry about this. The next time I come back, I'll make your strength increase even more. Also, the thing I gave you, you must be careful. If you meet Shui Jianfeng, if you can't suppress him, you'll have to rely on this. Yes, boss. I understand. Chen Dongqing nodded respectfully. The thing Lin Yi was talking about was a killing aura of the 5 elements that he had condensed. He used the method of condensing qi bombs to preserve it for Chen Dongqing to use as a trump card against Shui Jianfeng. However, this thing was very unstable. Lin Yi only dared to condense a small amount of 5 elemental killing qi to prevent it from exploding before he could use it. In any case, he just needed to catch Shui Jianfeng off guard and control him. Then Jing Jing and Big Brother Lin Yi will be leaving. I think we will meet again very soon. So, just pretend that we are going to an island for a vacation, and we will see each other again when we come back. Am I right? All right, everyone, take care. Bye-bye. Han Jingjing smiled and waved at everyone. Then, she and Lin Yi transformed into their primordial spirits and activated the teleportation back to Heaven Island. Lin Yi was originally holding Han Jingjing's hand, but after transforming into a primordial spirit, he naturally couldn't continue to hold onto her hand. Both of their primordial spirits were compressed and condensed to the extreme, instantly penetrating the barrier of the plane. After a violent dizziness, Lin Yi felt his body sink slightly. Obviously, his primordial spirit had returned. Because he was used to the state of the primordial spirit body, he still felt a little uncomfortable after returning to his body. The first thing Lin Yi did when he regained consciousness was to scan the area with his divine sense. It had become his instinct, and many times, this small action could save his life. Of course, the place where he was now was absolutely safe. The Tianan Pavilion was an industry that he built himself. Not to mention that this was Middle Island. Whether it was the will of heaven or Okuda, they were all big shots of Middle Island. Tian-chan! I'm back! Lin Yi didn't open his eyes. The corners of his mouth slightly hooked up as he said softly. Tian-chan, who was sitting on the side with her elbows on the coffee table and her palms supporting her chin, staring at Lin Yi, was suddenly shocked. She couldn't believe it, and widened her eyes for fear that this was an illusion caused by missing him too much. But the faint smile at the corner of Lin Yi's mouth made Tian-chan know that this really didn't seem to be an illusion. Ah! Lin Yi! You bad thing, are you really coming back? Hurry up and open your eyes. If you dare to lie to me, be careful that I kick you. Tian-chan suddenly rushed to the bedside and wanted to reach out and touch Lin Yi, but she was afraid that she would disturb him. For a time, she could only speak in confusion. Lin Yi's faint smile became more and more obvious, and his eyes slowly opened. The deep pupils exuded warm longing. I just came back and you want to kick me. To be honest, when I was away, did you come to kick me every day? Lin Yi opened his legs, walked down from the bed, and said with a smile. There was a burst of crisp cracking sounds like beans being fried. His body, which hadn't moved for a long time, suddenly surged with an indescribable feeling of comfort. Tian-chan's pretty face was slightly red. She snorted and said, Yeah, I came to kick you for no reason. Who told you to go away for so long and not come back? Lin Yi just smiled and didn't speak. Of course, Tian-chan was joking. She didn't have enough time to care about Lin Yi every day. How could she come to kick him for no reason? His divine sense entered the space of the jade pendant to take a look. Languza was really fine. Lin Yi was also relieved, but he didn't plan to release Languza for the time being. After all, things like the space of the jade pendant, it was fine if Tian-chan and the others knew, but if it was known by others, it would be very troublesome. On the heavenly stage island, Lin Yi's strength at the peak of the profound ascension late stage was far from being powerful. When he came back after going out to sea next time, the origin of Languza could be rationalized. In addition, Jiao Yazi really disappeared again. Fortunately, Lin Yi chatted with him for a long time before he left. The next time he went to the secular world, there shouldn't be any unhappiness, right? In contrast, the ghost Azure Dragon's spirit showed signs of awakening. They hadn't seen each other for a long time. When there was time, Lin Yi would have a good chat with him. While Lin Yi was in a daze, Tian-chan pulled the rope of the bell below. Although she wanted to spend more time with Lin Yi alone, Sydney was worried about Lin Yi just like her. As a good sister, she must inform Sydney as soon as possible. Hearing the bell ring, Sydney, who was busy downstairs, hurried up. She was still thinking that the last time the bell rang, it was Lin Yi who had resumed his cultivation state. Did he wake up this time? When she saw Lin Yi standing there with a smile, she knew that she guessed right, but she didn't know what to do for a while. She could only stand at the door and smile happily. Sydney, what are you standing there for? As a little wife, seeing that her husband woke up, shouldn't you come and serve him quickly? Tian-chan smiled mischievously. When Lin Yi came back, it seemed that everything became better. She was also in the mood to joke with her good sister. You're tuning into the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.